Hello and welcome to One Week, One Year, a podcast where we watch and discuss every year of film history in order, starting in 1895, the dawn of cinema. And this episode is 1953. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Ellie. I'm a film projectionist, and joining me is Marie Antoinette, my muse. Oh, just for the audio people, this is I'm holding up a very realistic head.
It almost looks like a real head.
Marie Antoinette. Who are you?
I am the other host, Glen, and my gimmick is that today my video camera is in a Cinemascope.
Widescreen.
Again, also doesn't make a difference in audio, so that's fun.
You know, you can watch it. You can consume our content, however, however you see fit. But and we've got little bonuses in each form.
Also, for reasons we'll probably get into later, it's not technically in Cinemascope. It's just an anamorphic widescreen. But
I am so ready to hear.
We're splitting hairs over.
I'm so ready to hear you talk about lenses. But yeah, I mean, we had to pull out all these gimmicks like Cinemascope and the 3D glasses and the head that I held up because we've got a lot of increasing competition from video podcasts. And so from YouTube, from Twitch streams. Yeah, that's it. We've got a lot of competition from Twitch streams. So we got to pull out all the stops. We've got a widescreen podcast now. What's up, Glenn?
Not much. I got a widescreen podcast. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Just living life, I guess.
Living large in the Big Apple.
Sure, yeah. So the hottest ticket of summer 2026.
Oh, you're talking about Arrival? That's not the hottest ticket, I guess. It's the best movie of 2016, but
sure, yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
You're talking about The Odyssey, which I saw as well. I drove 6 hours each way to go see it on the second biggest screen in the country, but the biggest IMAX 70mm screen in the country. And I thought it was okay.
I liked it more than okay, but I feel like there's stuff I do actually want to talk about with The Odyssey in relation to at least one of the movies that we watched for this episode.
Least one. Okay.
Because I do think it is relevant.
We do have a movie that features Mohawk helmets a la olden times.
Sure. And bigger than normal screens. So
Indeed. Yes. I feel like such a hater because all of the movies that everyone loved this summer, which were Project Hail Mary, The Odyssey, and Obsession. I thought all of them were just okay, and I'm like,
that's allowed.
Yeah, no, I mean,
despite what the internet may say, that is allowed.
I feel like I get accused of being a contrarian sometimes, in some respects, and this is not helping my case, but but on the other hand, there was a moment where I was like, am I capable of feeling? Have I lost everything? And then I watched Sound of Music and I was like, oh, I could feel.
And music, pretty good.
Yeah, and we'll get to that much sooner. But anyway, we like to this is going to be a long one because we got a lot of movies we're talking about. So let's get rolling. Let's hear a little bit of context for what was going on in the world while we were watching these movies. What was the news of the year 1953?
The news of the year 1953. Saucers in the skies. The CIA creates a scientific committee to investigate UFO sightings in the D.C. area. Watson and Crick discovered the double helix structure of the DNA molecule. A new era begins in the Soviet Union as Premier Joseph Stalin dies. The first effective polio vaccine test is conducted. Jackie Cochran becomes the first supersonic woman in an F-86 Sabre. Queen Elizabeth II is coronated, beginning her record-breaking reign. Man reaches the highest peak. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay become the first to summit Mount Everest. The U.S. Treasury gives a new name to one of its divisions, the Internal Revenue Service. An armistice ends the Korean War. A demilitarized zone separates the capitalist South and communist North, but no peace treaty is signed. The CIA instigates a coup d'etat in Iran, overthrowing their democratically elected leader and installing a friendly one. France's prison colony, Devil's Island, closes, and the prisoners are returned to the mainland. At the Soviets' behest, the People's Republic of China is accepted into the United Nations. All eyes on Lucy. 73.9%, or 44 million Americans, tune in to watch the I Love Lucy episode where she gives birth to her son. The 25th Academy Awards is held, the first to be broadcast on television.
And that is all the news fit to yell. For 1953.
You should end everyone that way. That's funny.
All the news that's fit to yell.
This I Love Lucy thing, it's really making me go like, man, like I feel like we're not covering TV, and like we're not covering TV, but like
we got to do a separate podcast of covering all of television. I think that can be its own thing.
But yeah, I Love Lucy, huge deal, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
I guess it's worth mentioning that I Love Lucy is probably that, I shouldn't speak without knowing precisely, but I feel like it's the mega hit first TV show in a way. First, the Big Bang Theory of its day.
Oh God. I mean, it is relevant in that 1953 is notable for its sort of like cinema gimmicks, and that sort of like this escalation against television, where like TV is blowing up, everyone's watching I Love Lucy. Movie theaters and movie studios are like, we gotta up our game, we gotta make the screens bigger, we gotta have stuff popping out, we gotta,
And they didn't have Tom Cruise to welcome people back to the movies. I don't think he was born yet at this point.
Sadly, they had no Tom Cruise to fall back on.
The BT it was maybe 7 years BT. I should have said BC because it's before Cruise.
Before Cruise, sure.
Yeah. I was just thinking before Tom. But anyway, we've got a couple of shorts to start us off. A little aperitif of a Looney Tunes.
A little Daffy Duck aperitif.
A little Daffy double feature. So let's get into 1 week, 1 reel and talk about, you want to do Duck Dodgers?
Sure. I feel like Duck Dodgers is I guess they're both notable. Duck Dodgers is the debut of a sort of, I don't know, subcategory of Daffy Duck. A Daffy Duck specific character is debuting this year.
Well, yeah, we're saying Duck Dodgers. This is actually Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
It's true. You got to say the whole thing every time.
I lean away from the mic to breathe in and to yell. But yeah, this watching this was really underscoring to me how much of Looney Tunes was like just contemporary parodies. I think, like old episodes of The Simpsons, Looney Tunes was kind of riffing off of things that were common in the day, that were popular in the day, and making like pop culture references. But they have been, because it's all in the past, it all feels like this is just what it was, instead of something gimmicky like a pop culture reference.
It weirdly gets kind of lost now because we're like, oh yeah, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. That's just like a Looney Tunes thing. And it's like, no, that's a very direct like parody of something else.
Buck Rogers, which we should say, but yes.
Which, unless you're a weird sci-fi nerd like me, you might not even have heard of Buck Rogers. I feel like Buck Rogers does not have a big cultural footprint anymore.
If I'm remembering correctly, for my entire life, my parents have had 2 pinball machines in the basement that have never functioned. But one of them is a Buck Rogers pinball machine. Ooh. And I would love to someday get that working. This has got a lot of really cool, like, mid-century retro futurist imagery in it.
Does it ever? Yeah.
Kind of Jetsons aesthetic, but to maybe riff off something a little more visually well known. I was thinking, I haven't really watched much Buck Rogers or any Buck Rogers, but like you think about how animation you can kind of create such like exaggerated sets and landscapes that would be difficult to pull off in live action because you would have to build it or
Mm.
do a matte painting or something like that. And so they have these
Difficult,
like
but not impossible.
not impossible. Uh but yeah, they have a lot of really cool just kind of like space stations and rocket ships and ray guns in this.
Yeah, disintegrator guns, ultimatum guns, lots of great. I do love how everything is labeled. Also, love to see. Apparently, Acme is still in business in the 24th and a half century, despite the
Celebrating, yeah.
lawsuits.
Acme celebrating their, 500th 500th year in business, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean,
Uh
their products do seem to work maybe a little bit better in this short. So
I mean, the disintegrator gun does what it says that it does, which is
yeah,
that when you
as does the integrator gun.
the disintegrator gun, you fire it and then it disintegrates.
Mhm.
And it was Daffy's problem that he didn't understand what they meant. Uh,
Yeah, a lot of good gags in this one. Lots of fun Looney Tunesy like visual jokes. The alphabet planets. They're looking for planet X, and they go through like the whole alphabet, and there's just planets with giant letters on them.
lovely. I love it.
Yeah.
I was definitely getting some kind of like critique of colonialism vibes in
Oh
this
yeah.
in this short,
The flag planting, the arbitrary like who got there first kind of ness of it all.
Yeah, like I stake my claim of this place, and in their fighting for the place that they have just decided is theirs, they end up destroying the thing that they claimed they wanted. Uh it
Sort
leaves
of a
out
neighbors situation.
exactly. Yeah. Is Duck Dodgers communist? But yeah, I think
Hmm.
it's not the most rich critique. It's only 7 minutes long, but it almost reads like a bit of a parable in a way.
Sure. I do think it's like I don't know how much of that is like directly intentional, but it also wouldn't surprise me if, the Looney Tunes animators are a little lefty in this time period.
Got a lot of Daffy yelling in this one, yelling Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. But yes, another Looney Tunes short that features a lot of Daffy Duck yelling. This thing is actually this short is entirely Daffy Duck yelling, which is Duck Amuck, which
Yeah.
a legendary Looney Tunes short.
Which I'm kind of surprised I don't think I'd ever seen before.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Isn't this incredible?
Yeah, and it's funny how much it reminded me of like really early like 1900s animation with its like very
Ah,
direct acknowledgement of like there is someone drawing things. There is this
true.
like other presence of an animator throughout the whole thing. It's like very direct like kind of reference and like acknowledgement that like there is someone drawing pictures and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, the setup of this one is basically Daffy is trying to do a regular Looney Tunes short, and things keep going wrong on the metatextual level of the animator not cooperating with Daffy.
Yeah.
It
The
imagines
animator keeps
Daffy as a living person who is participating in the making of the cartoon with the person drawing the cartoon. But I guess he can't see the animator because then he would realize that it was Bugs Bunny messing with him the whole time.
indeed. What a reveal and what a great usage of "Ain't I
Hey,
a
nice.
stinker?" I like cheered when that happened. It's so I try to look at it. It's not the first instance of Bugs Bunny saying "Ain't I a stinker," but it's my favorite that I have seen.
It's kind of a
Certainly.
catchphrase, yeah.
Right. But right, it was an established catchphrase at this point. But yeah, like I love the way that this short uses like weird like 2D logic. Like Daffy will look behind him at like the background, but then would also look forward, like towards, the screen, towards the audience, and be addressing the animator. And it's this thing where it's like, what is Daffy supposed to be seeing? Like, Daffy isn't really existing in 3D space.
Yeah, it's like Daffy lives on the piece of paper. We're seeing the final version,
Yeah.
but he can't see outside of his. He can't. It seems like what he can see is more or less what we can see. He lives on
Right.
a flat land, I suppose.
Which is, I think, a very common, like, cartoon thing. It's like, it what exists outside of like, nothing exists outside of the frame of what we see.
Mm, hmm. But I think interestingly, this is very much engaging with the idea of the frame specifically.
Mhm.
Uh, this is just just under 7 minutes long, and it is imagining like every possible joke that could come from uh like a cartoon character who is fighting with the person making the cartoon, up to and including some kind of stuff where like the film slips out of frame, or the animator starts making the frame, the shape of the frame start like sagging from the roof
Mhm.
or something.
Right, as if it's like a tent or like a curtain.
Yeah. There's a part where like Daffy says to like zoom in for a close up, and then it just gets to like a really small square covering like the distant area that he's in. So it's like black on almost the entire screen, but then it like just makes like a little vignette around him really far away. It's like it's calling attention to the thing itself in
Yeah.
in terms of like a physicality or an imagined physicality, but also funny ways to yell at the animator.
Sure, yeah. It's quite meta, I suppose. It also reminded me of, the Sega Genesis game Comix Zone, which I'm sure you're familiar with,
Thanks to you, yes.
which is all of like, it's a 2D side scroller where there is a villainous sort of like animator who's drawing in enemies on the screen that you have to fight. Who knows? Maybe Comic Zone is directly inspired by this Looney Tunes short. Who's to say?
There's like a really popular Flash animation from like 20 years ago too, called Animator versus Animation.
Oh
Which,
yeah.
like, the stick figure guy that
Hmm.
is leaping out of Macromedia Flash at the time,
Right.
and like moving around on the desktop and fighting with the person operating the computer and like grabbing the mouse and that sort of thing.
But yeah, pretty cool. Pretty smart. It definitely feels like just like the animators having fun with this one. Like,
Postmodernism has arrived at Looney Tunes.
absolutely. Yeah. Should
uh,
we move on to one of our many feature films?
Feature presentation.
Feature presentation.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Oh, animation. It's hard to have these like really wacky, like surreal settings
Mm-hmm.
in live action. But a
Mm.
movie that I think does a pretty good job of doing that is The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
Which is like a wild title, and when I heard the title, I thought it was some kind of, you know, creature that had 5,000 fingers, but,
Mm.
uh, I couldn't imagine what it was referring to, but yes, it's about a dream. The whole movie is a dream sequence, basically, of a kid who feels oppressed by his disciplinarian piano teacher and has a dream, uh, where he's in a Dr. Seussian world, where his piano teacher is trying to enslave 500 children to create a 5,000 fingered piano.
An incredible film. I mean, you said Dr. Seussian, which is quite apt, as this is the only feature film written by Dr. Seuss. Script and song lyrics, since this is also a musical. I think I had like vaguely heard of this movie before I'd seen it,
Hmm.
as this like, weird cultural object. I do think it is easily the best, like, Dr. Seuss's books have been translated to film. Like, I think it is notable how there have been multiple live action adaptations of Dr. Seuss books that I think all are missing some key ingredient that this
Mm.
movie is not. This movie really does feel like it captures Dr. Seuss's whole deal
Yeah.
much better than any of those do, which makes sense since he was directly involved with it.
And yeah, I mean, like when you say his whole deal, like the his handwriting like is like on
Hmm.
like the some of the signage. I feel like Dr. Seuss has a lot of like things with gloves on them pointing at things,
Disembodied
you know.
gloved hands, yeah, is a big thing with Dr. Seuss. Like, yeah, like the architecture, the
Yes.
props, like the visuals of this movie, I think are
So cool.
insane and
So cool.
incredible, and kind of genuinely unlike anything I've seen before or since. Like, because it is so much of a like direct translation of like Dr. Seuss artwork into live action.
Every time somebody makes a movie this visually distinct, I'm like, why are we not doing this all the time? You know,
Yeah.
like why are there not 500 Fury Roads? Why are there not
Mm,
500 500
yeah.
5,000 fingers?
I mean, I do think the answer is because it is incredibly difficult to do.
What I don't think that people are dedicated to doing it. I think that the pursuit of realism is folly.
Well, sure. No, I do agree that sort of realism and naturalism in just all storytelling is a bit overrated in my opinion. Yeah, like the sets in this movie are just absolutely incredible and wild. This movie really reminded me of Powell and Pressburger movies. Only I think with a lot less it takes itself a lot less seriously than those do. Like Powell and Pressburger
Oh,
movies
sure.
do feel
Yeah.
very much like they are dramas aimed at an adult audience, whereas this is very much a like musical for children. And yet I think it also never really talks down to the audience. And it is like about very like childlike ideas. Like it operates on sort of kid logic a lot of the time because it is also right, the whole movie is like a child's nightmare that we're watching.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also like yeah, I think the narrative it does I think it's interesting in that if it does very much feels like it's built for kids too.
Mhm.
But like the things that it's talking about feel like very kid oriented struggles.
Mhm. I know that this movie was, like, a big box office bomb and, like, was not well reviewed at all upon release, and I think kind of had sort of got a sort of infamous reputation for that, despite the fact that I genuinely think this movie is, like, a near masterpiece. I love this movie so much, and I think the, like, the the kind of, childishness of it is, uh, uh, a feature, not a bug. Like, I
Definitely.
love how much
It's
it
written by
commits
Dr.
to.
Seuss.
Right, but I love how much it commits to, like, not remotely trying to, like, have the story make sense on, like, adult terms. It is,
Good.
like,
Also
things
overrated.
happen because that is just, like, what a child thinks happens, you know?
Mhm.
And I love that about it so much, and I think it is, like, a rarity in movies for something to be like this. I think it is a lot more common in animation. A lot of this movie does feel like animation because of how, like, surreal and dreamlike it is.
Yeah, I feel like we keep talking about it, but it's like hard not to like overstate how just strange like visually like every frame is. Like
Yeah.
it is
There
just
are no straight lines in this entire film.
yeah. Yeah, like all sorts of like weird spires. I mean, like, you know, visually you could say it's like riffing off of Caligari in certain ways. I mean, it
Yeah, it
is
does feel very, like, German expressionist, at least in its sort of approaches of, like, the sets aren't gonna look like real places. They're all gonna be weird shapes. The lighting is gonna be super dramatic and, like, stark. I think even, like, the main kid, Tommy Rettig is the actor's name, looks like a Dr. Seuss drawing. Like, is so well cast in that it's like they found a child actor that looks like he was drawn by Dr. Seuss.
he also just looks like the most generic 1950s kid, you
That
know?
too, right.
Like
And
he's
I
got
also love that,
he's got
like,
like a
how.
stripy shirt. For most of the movie, he's
Yeah,
wearing like a silly hat with a hand on top of it.
yeah,
And yeah, he's just like a gee, I gotta go play stickball. It's the
yeah,
50s.
right. He's getting forced into playing piano all the livelong day by his strict piano teacher, Dr. Terwilliger. And he feels sort of betrayed by his mother, who is enabling this and is forcing him to learn piano. And so he falls asleep at the piano and has this nightmare about Dr. Terwilliger being this like oppressive like warlord who has this
Yeah.
piano institute and is
It
forcing 500 children to play piano for him.
yeah, it's a whole city that's like built around this giant like multi-tiered piano.
Yeah,
Uh
surrounded by electrified barbed wire, full of like guards. It's
yeah,
like
like Dr. Susie looking goons.
yeah.
And then his plumber is there too, who becomes
Right,
a
his
father
his
figure.
plumber who he wants to be his dad because his dad is it's never specified what happened to his dad. I feel like it is maybe subtly implied that he had died in World War II. I think this movie does have a lot of like it feels very distinctly 1950s. It has a lot of like 50s like post World War II angst to it.
Sure. Yeah.
It feels very like of its time and that it I think you can easily see this movie as a like a metaphor for McCarthyism. I think there's a lot of like, atomic age anxiety happening.
Yeah. There's a oh man, I'm forgetting what the exact thing is at the end, but there's like a threat with an object, and then Dr. Terwilliger goes, "Is it atomic?"
Yeah. Right. It's like, ooh, this thing is dangerous. It might even be atomic. And it is like totally it's like some liquid with a bunch of stuff put in it,
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
which is like the most child logic thing in the whole movie is that they take a bottle of it's called Air Fix, and it just says on the bottle Air Fix. It fixes air.
Incredible.
And then they modify that using generic science to
Yeah.
fix music so it when music is in the air it captures it in the bottle. But the way they do that is just like, I got a bunch of stuff in my pockets. Some gum, yo-yo, some string, just
That is the
generic
coolest, like
50s kid objects.
it's the coolest like kid logic thing of it's just like I'm gonna do a science experiment. I'm just gonna like take
Yeah.
all these things and mix them together and then make something that sucks music out of the air.
Like, this is affecting sound. We need something that affects sound. So they steal a hearing aid from one of the guards and just like plop that in the bottle. And it's like, okay, it does stuff with sound now. It's like it so captures the feeling of like a child imagination of just sort of like, no, like this is what I say it is because I say it is this thing.
There's a lot of scenes in Dr. T's kind of, I don't know, penthouse w- realm at the top of this spire. You go in through like a trap door in the floor, or it's like a hole in the floor that you
Yeah, it's
climb
like
up
it's
through.
like a fireman's pole.
I think the sets in there specifically, they feel almost like 70s queer art kind of stuff, like the very like I mean, Dr. T in the dream looks like a gay music wizard, you know?
Sure,
Like,
yeah. I think gay music wizard is a pretty apt description of Dr. T.
and like it just has like a, I don't know, like I would say like, 20 years early, it has some kind of, Rocky Horror esque aesthetics.
Hmm.
That like just the kind of garishness involved when you're doing really wacky stuff visually. You might end up hitting on something that feels a little ahead of its time. And I think in some ways that does.
Yeah. Right. I do there's like so much in this movie to like unpack. I think it's like on its surface it is like very straightforward and simplistic, and yet I think there's a lot of like very timely subtext to pull from it.
Hmm.
It feels like a very rich text, I guess, which is all the more frustrating that it was like so kind of dismissed when it came out.
And cut down a whole lot. There's like a lot of music that is missing from the movie because they cut it way down after test screenings.
Also worth noting, one of the songs in this movie makes me cry because I find it very poignant, which is called "Because We're Kids," and it is the main character. What's his name? Bartholomew or Bart.
Bart.
A little scamp named Bart. How what a concept. And he has the song where he sings about like uh feeling pushed around because he's small and that his voice isn't very loud, and it is like so I don't know. It's very surface level. It cuts right to my heart
It
for
does,
some
it does.
reason.
My partner cried during that scene too.
It is like, and I think a lot of that is also due to just like the performance is like just feels so earnest of just
Mhm.
like he's like, you have no right to push me around just because I'm small and you're bigger than me, and I'm just like, ugh. Also, I mean, I don't know. As a child, I was often the youngest kid in whatever group I was in. I have two older brothers, and so like I do feel like I was often like the smallest kid in any like group of
Hmm.
children until I was a bit older.
Yeah, I mean, in
And
our
so
group, you were,
right by
older.
the time that I knew you, right, I was like one of the old kids in like the social group, but it took a while for me to get there.
To get your
And
crown.
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I don't know, it just like it really it I feel like I get this movie. Like this movie really speaks to me. In that it's like it is so much about like childhood nonconformity and about like don't ask me to just like sit and like do your boring adult shit. Like that's on you. Like let me do fun kid stuff. Let me go outside. Like the movie ends with him waking up from the dream and like everyone else leaves and he just immediately runs outside with a baseball and a glove and is like presumably gonna have a great day running around outside as 50s children ought to.
Yeah, yeah, really cool movie. Really, I mean, I hadn't heard of it until you told me about it, and so I'm very glad that I
Yeah.
saw it.
The only reason I saw this movie is because it was playing at the Nighthawk in Brooklyn as part of the like they had a series of Steven Soderbergh selected like movies that had inspired him his whole life, and they were all like by different decade, and so the one from the 1950s was this movie, and it apparently was a movie that he saw as a kid, and
Mm.
then and has been like one of his favorite movies since.
This would be a great movie to show to a kid.
Right? I think so. I think it is like a great kids movie in that it is like it is so clearly aimed at kids and like about right like childlike concerns, and yet it doesn't feel like it is ever like trying to compromise by like being more adult focused. It never feels like it's talking down to the audience. It's just it's great.
Yeah. Speaking of another movie relating to nonconformity and
Hey.
speaks to Glenn, we also watched the movie Glen or Glenda.
Gasp!
The original title being "I Changed My Sex!"
Exclamation
Uh,
point.
exclamation point.
Which is still on the poster.
Yeah, I think it's like a tagline on the
Yeah.
poster, more or less.
Sort of a live die repeat situation.
Precisely. Directed by Ed Wood.
Yeah, our
This is
first
his.
Ed Wood picture.
This is the first Ed Wood picture as a feature, and this is an absurdly personal movie that kind of mixes narrative and documentary and like abstract like Lynchian sequences and stock footage and Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
It's
To varying degrees of success, I would say.
yeah,
It's a very strange movie, but also I was a little shocked at how much of it kind of worked.
yeah,
I think
and I think
this movie's reputation is really as a sort of like I don't know. I guess Ed Wood's reputation in general as this like inept kind of like schlock director,
yeah, Leonard Maltin called this perhaps the worst movie ever made, and I think that's
which
a
is absurd.
ridiculous thing to say.
That is so absurd to say. Yeah.
I think
Cuz
that
it's
even the stuff that doesn't work, you can tell that they failed at what they were doing. I think it
mhm.
creates something interesting in the process anyway.
Sure. Yeah. Right. I'm curious to watch more Ed Wood movies that are kind of more like direct, just kind of like genre, like kind of genre schlock. Because this feels so like intensely personal
Yeah.
in a way that really surprised me.
Yeah, this movie is was kind of came about because some people are trying to make an exploitation movie sort of riffing riffing off of the ripped from the headlines Christine Jorgensen, who is the American trans woman who had like a gender reassignment operation in Denmark and like made headlines for being ex-GI becomes blonde bombshell. And then they contacted Ed Wood, who was kind of a frequent cross-dresser, contacted him to make this movie. He was a cross-dresser, and that was or a transvestite, and that's sort of like refer to how he refers to himself and how they refer to them in the movie. But this is very clearly, they didn't quite have the lingo for it, but this is like a
Sure.
trans movie. And Ed Wood said, I think a friend of Ed Wood's like asked him like if he could have anything, like what would it be? And he said to be born as like a blonde woman instead, right? So I think we're
Mm.
very clearly like dealing with like a proto trans kind of situation here. But yeah, structurally this movie explores gender stuff. Structurally it's kind of hard to even say what's going on in this movie.
Structure of this movie is a complete mess, I think. But I do think it is like I kind of went into this movie being like, oh boy, here we go, like a movie from the 50s about gender stuff. Yikes. And I was really surprised by how, for the time, like how incredibly progressive it is.
Yeah.
And how like it right, like you were saying, like the vocabulary is not there. Like we've clearly made a lot of strides as an American society of like how to discuss gender and yet I feel like this movie is so earnest and so like coming from a kind of like real place, and that there's like elements of it that are like insanely exploitative, and there are elements of it that feel like just real, I don't know, a very genuine
I mean it feels like it's coming
expression.
from a really deep place of pain and yearning.
Yeah, yeah.
This movie, like there are points where the
And
movie
empathy too.
gets
I think this movie
yeah
feels, for the most part, very empathetic. I think there's parts of it that feel less so, but yeah.
yeah, to what you're saying, like I feel like the main thing that this movie is doing is like pleading to people to please accept trans people. Like
Yeah.
that is what the movie is mostly like. The movie has a narrator just kind of saying like, you should treat these people well, like they just were born the wrong body and want to wear women's clothes. And it's kind of incredible. It's kind of incredible
Yeah.
how like, earnestly supportive it is, because it's being made by somebody who, who actually, I mean, we can more or less say was trans.
Right. And it is like right I don't think Ed Wood ever, like, during his lifetime said that, but at the same time, it's sort of like the language didn't really exist, and so based on things that he did say, that I don't think it's an unreasonable, like, assumption to make.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm basing this, I mean, Ed Wood cross-dressed a lot and he was known for doing so. And I'm basing this on somebody else saying that he wishes that he was born as a woman,
Mhm.
like as a blonde woman. Yeah, I think something I mean, another thing, speaking to the kind of personal nature of this movie, is that there are ways that it gets like kind of misogynistic, specifically because it has this like seething jealousy of being a woman. Like which is like a wild thing that's going on in this
Mm.
movie. But like it's just talking about like women have it so nice. They think everything's like so good for them. They wear these comfortable clothes. They get to wear these things that fit nice. They don't have to wear hats that restrict the blood flow in their head and make them bald.
Right. There's
Like,
a section of the movie that is just, like, ragging on men's clothing and being like, "Women's clothing is just better, okay? Just, like just, like, women's clothes are just objectively better. They look better, they're more comfortable, there's way more variety," and I'm like, "These are all pretty good points."
except that like women's clothing is often uncomfortable, right? Like this is the era where
Sure,
everybody
yeah.
had to wear the Mad Men time, where everybody had to wear high heels and stuff. But
Right,
like,
yeah.
but yeah, like
Right, and it was like, "Just let me wear a fuzzy sweater, please."
yeah, I say the narrator is saying all of this stuff, but there's like two narrators, because uh
Right. The
where it's like, who even knows what's going on, because we've
the
got
Bela
like
Lugosi of it all, who needs to be addressed.
the way I roughly what this movie is. I'll work from the inside out.
Sure.
There is a person named Glen who likes to wear women's clothes,
Played
and
by Ed Wood.
played by Ed Wood, even more confessional, I think, and his girlfriend, played by his girlfriend, and it's like this character trying to figure out like how to reveal this to the fiance, and scenes uh of Glen yearning to become Glenda, and all of this is being narrated by as like a story that had happened in the past by a psychiatrist who is being interviewed by a cop to learn about transness, basically. And the cop is doing this because he happened upon, or like he was recently working a case where there was a trans woman who committed suicide, and in her letter she said, I would rather like wear these clothes, like I got arrested so many times for wearing these clothes in public, um and I can't, like, the world won't let me wear them in life, so let me wear them in death, which is like, that's like a whole like woof, that's
Yeah.
like, but then at the same time, so there's that stuff that's being narrated as told to the cop, uh but then at the same time, Bella Lugosi is there as like a scientist who is just saying just things about
I mean,
society or whatever.
scientist in the like, you know, universal horror movie idea of a scientist. Like he's there in a room full of like skulls and beakers.
Yeah.
He's kind of just saying like Bella Lugosi shit. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't really like connect to anything else the movie is saying. He's just saying a bunch of spooky stuff.
And it's unclear, like, yeah, how much he has to do with the movie. There's a point later in the movie where he sort of gets like involved in what's happening, where the movie gets a little more like dream sequency toward the end, and then
Mhm.
like Bela Lugosi is reacting to what is happening in the dream sequence. There's a New York Times thing talking about it where they said that Lugosi presides over the action like some sex change deity, which I think is kind of which is kind of gets at what is going on with that, to the extent that you can get at that you can understand what's going on with it.
Yeah, it is like I do find this movie really interesting in the way that it is often using kind of like the language of genre film, like kind of specifically like universal horror movies to talk about like gender nonconformity,
Hmm,
which I still think is sort of uh, often a thing that happens in genre films. And it's like there's such clear inspiration in this from like Todd Browning and James Whale movies,
sure. Yeah.
both of whom also made movies about like nonconformity, right? And it's like it at points reminded me of Freaks. In it is like a very old movie about, and it's like using very sort of archaic language, but is ultimately like very empathetic.
It's got good intentions.
Right. You know, there's a title card at the beginning that says, "You are society, judge ye not." Oh, it's also funny how much like this is like a very earnest movie, and yet is using such sort of like very like kind of not absurd, but just like very dramatic like horror movie language to talk about stuff. Like there's it's
Yeah,
like
because like
casually mentions like Morpheus, god of sleep, and it's like he's just talking about going to bed. Like that's
yeah, yeah. There's like there another kind of weird layer to this movie is that it's sort of this exploitative like gawking sort of thing. I think that's
mhm.
nominally what it was made for, is to be like, it's an exploitation film, like you
Right.
are going to like look at this bizarre thing, like
Yeah.
point
I believe
point
like
at it, and but
Ed
then the
Wood was
movie is
hired
mostly
to
just,
make an exploitation film,
yeah,
and instead made a very personal film.
right, because he was like, I am that. So I'm
Right.
going to just say what I feel about it. Yeah, but like so there's like the horror movie part of it, but then, in the parts that are being narrated by the psychiatrist, it has this like 1950s informational film
Right.
kind
It
of
it
vibe.
it
You
does
know,
kind of feel like a PSA.
always check your bike for bombs planted by commie spies.
Yeah, it is like it's like caught in this weird place kind of between exploitation movie and kind of like very very earnest like PSA and kind of like call for like empathy and acceptance. And you can kind of feel it getting like pulled in either direction at certain points. Right, because there's the whole like weird, surreal, like Kuleshov effect striptease section in the middle that
Yeah.
feels totally out of place with the rest of it, and apparently was not something that Ed Wood shot. It was like stuff that was added outside of his work,
Ah, huh.
which makes a lot of sense because it's the most directly exploitive part of the whole thing, and is it feels very kind of strange and awkward in the way that it just like it was like, and now we're cutting to this other thing with absolutely zero explanation or lead up or context.
But somehow like the movie is so kind of all over the place and surreal that like
Right.
it's getting more
It doesn't
surreal,
break
but
it that much.
yeah, I'm just kind of like along for the ride. But I think that's the point where it really just verges into the Lynchian. Is
Hmm.
the striptease
Yeah.
part. And apparently David Lynch was a big fan of this movie.
I
Uh,
feel like you can really see the David Lynch in this movie, and
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. There's a section where Ed Wood is wearing like a dark suit in a weird like living room set, and it feels like he looks like Agent Cooper in the Black Lodge.
yeah. And that's the thing. It's like I can tell you can see in every way how inept this movie is, but like and so it seems like it like stumbles backwards into something a little
Mm,
magical and Lynchian almost. Like it is not I don't think it's really intending to do everything that it does. Uh but I was kind of shocked at how well whatever it is came together, you know. Uh
right. Yeah.
it establishes a feeling that carries itself through all of its kind of detours and ineptitude.
Mm. There is like there's a bit, I forget exactly what the context was, but there's like the narrator is talking about like basically just like describing the backlash against cross dressing or of like gender nonconformity in general, and the very like typical 1950s narrator way is like silly, certainly, and I'm like that is a great way to respond to bigotry. Is like, yes, this is silly. Like, shut up. Who cares? Um,
Yeah.
and I do like how that this movie is like really is right in in very blunt language being like, yeah, like what's going on here?
Yeah, it's like, it's making a lot of the beginning of the movie before we even get to Glen's story is making a case of just like, God said that we should be the way that we were when we were born,
That's what it was.
why are you wearing glasses? Why are you driving a car? And it's like, it's not wrong.
Yeah, it's like right, the sort of applying sort of like God's will to things. Right. It's like if God had intended us to there's like right the really like obnoxious voice like if God had intended us to fly, he would have given us wings. And it's like, what about airplanes? You got a problem with airplanes now too?
Yeah, and the movie's literally saying this, which honestly, people are still making these kind of arguments, right?
Right.
Like this is a
Yeah.
movie from 70 years ago, 75 years ago, and like it is making a case for accepting gender nonconformity in a way that still people need to hear.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that I think the people who are against uh who are against all of this stuff are not necessarily going to be convinced by this movie, but it uses some valid
Sure.
arguments that people are
Yeah.
still using today.
Right. There's also right, there's like the back half of the movie is about another character, Anne, was born Alan, who I think is also sort of somewhat based off of Ed Wood and Christine Jorgensen a little bit because Anne is a GI as Ed Wood was, who then gets sex reassignment surgery. And like, but the movie never misgenders her. Like it refers to Anne as her the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, such a simple thing that I was like still surprised that the movie stuck to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because it respects these people. I think that is the thing. Is the
Right.
movie
Yeah.
respects them. And the way the movie ends up, which I don't know how, intentional, like there's a lot that you can tell comes from the heart with this movie, from Ed Wood's heart, but like there's the way that it wraps up, which is like, maybe nominally Hays Code following of
Hmm.
the right thing has to happen in the end. And so the movie does this kind of weird thing where it reminded me a lot of the Lois Weber movie, Where Are My Children, which
Hmm.
is a movie that, from the ni- early 20s, I think, that is a plea for allowing abortion, but not for rich frivolous people, only for poor people, because it's also advocating for eugenics. Right?
Right.
Like it's like when you look a movie that when you look at it from our modern context, it's like, what are you
Oh
even talking
no.
about,
Yeah. Yeah.
and this movie is like
I think
is
that's
kind of
kind of what I
saying,
expected this movie to be, and I was surprised that it.
well, in the
I
end,
think
and I
it.
don't
Yeah.
think this really comes from a place where the movie necessarily actually believes in, but in the end, what it says is, uh, getting gender confirming surgery is okay if you're intersex, but not if you're not. Like
Hmm.
if it makes a distinction between Anne, who was born with male and female organs, and then they just corrected it in the direction that felt correct for Anne, right? And where Glen or Glenda had some kind of weird psychosexual thing going on, and it ended up that Glenn learned to be a man
Sure.
at the
Yeah.
end,
But
and
it
then
still
the movie goes,
ends.
"That's how it's supposed to be," but like,
Yeah.
why
No,
are you drawing that line
it's
there?
it right. It is a bit maybe simplistic in its worldview, but I do like how at least it ends that story on a note at least of like his girlfriend accepting him. And right, it's like she is handing over her fuzzy sweater to him as this way of like, no, 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 you should wear the fuzzy sweater. But right, it's a bit, yeah, I guess just overly simplistic. Like it is not. It is still a movie from the 50s at the end of the day.
And also, it's
Yeah,
just confused. This movie is confused at every possible level that it could be
sure.
confused.
Yeah, it's also like we haven't even talked about like a very common Ed Wood thing is like this movie is like 75% stock footage. There's a lot of narration. It's like all the sets look like they were built in about 10 minutes. Um, but yeah, I mean, as an introduction to, I mean, I've seen the Tim Burton movie about Ed Wood, so I was familiar with like the entire oeuvre, I guess. But I'm very curious to see more Ed Wood movies. I doubt any of them will feel as personal as this, or as much of a kind of like unique kind of piece of outsider art as this does.
Hmm.
But I'm curious to see his just sort of like vampire atomic monster movies also.
Yeah, I haven't seen Plan 9 from Outer Space, and I'm very interested to see it. By the
Yeah.
way, Ed Wood from Poughkeepsie, represent.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, filmmakers from Poughkeepsie. We should have Ed
Yeah.
Wood on the podcast.
If only.
Speaking of a movie that smacks of gender, uh let's do Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, unless you had
Sure.
another one that you wanted to go to.
No, yeah, I think that's a good segue as any, I suppose. Right, movies that also I don't know, just have sort of like 50s like kitsch attached to them a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a big Technicolor Marilyn Monroe musical.
Howard Hawks as well.
Right, directed by Howard Hawks, co-starring Jane Russell also. And we had seen All About Eve, where Marilyn Monroe was like a supporting character. She wasn't in very much of the movie. This is, I think, the first kind of like star vehicle that we've watched for the
We're
show.
in full Marilyn mode
Right,
now.
which also 1953 was like she was in like 5 movies this year. Um Like Niagara is also this year. How to Marry a Millionaire. There's a bunch of them.
In her kind of small role in All About Eve, she's kind of acting like a normal person, where I think now she has found a shtick that she is doing at all moments.
She's doing that shtick in All About Eve also, but I think it is a sort of a little bit of an unrefined version of that shtick. Whereas as a lead character, you can feel that that shtick has sort of melded into a more cohesive persona.
When she I feel like I see her just slipping into the shtick every time she starts talking, and the shtick being like, she'll be kind of like sitting and posed like a normal person, and then she starts talking, and then like her eyelids kind of fall halfway down, and she just like kind of kind of sexily whispers everything. I
Well,
guess she's
I
like,
think this is a good place to talk about how like Marilyn Monroe is a character. Like Marilyn Monroe is a persona created for the movies,
mm-hmm.
right? Like Norma Jean Mortensen, her birth name, did not have naturally blonde hair, didn't talk in a whisper at all times, like was an actress, was a person. But like I also think it's funny how this movie, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, like actively acknowledges that like the cultural image of Marilyn Monroe that we think of is very much a persona because
Yeah,
it
she's
also
calculated
has
in this
Jane
movie.
Russell playing that character. Right? Like Jane Russell at some point is sort of pretending to be Marilyn
Oh,
Monroe's character
true.
and is
Interesting.
like
Yeah.
puts on a blonde wig, does the voice, and it's like actively acknowledging this thing that's like right, the person that we think of as Marilyn Monroe is this like manufactured persona
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I get like I knew before, but I think it's like I think this movie kind of like really puts it into like pretty stark terms. How much her like star persona is this like curated thing.
A lot of what this movie is about, and a lot of what it involves, is like women kind of, or at least specifically Marilyn Monroe's character, shrewdly manufacturing the way that she presents herself in order to get ahead. And in this, she wants to marry a millionaire.
Mm.
And
If only there
and
was some other movie with that same premise from the same year.
So, this is the film where "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend" comes from,
Mhm.
and it is a incredible musical number.
It is.
And like speak like Technicolor, like oh my god, the way that red pops in that scene
Yeah, this
is
is really a very much one of
wild.
those sort of like they don't make technical movies like Technicolor anymore. Like the Technicolor of this movie is so bright and vivid and poppy. Yeah, it's great.
I think this movie is a fun time. It's a fun time. It's kind of a loose movie. It's not really
It's very
it's
loose. It's very cartoonish. Like
yeah.
there are like cartoon sound effects when people are dizzy, like
Oh yeah, which I love. I love that.
um like it's not nearly as cartoonish as this, but it reminded me a little bit of in that moment reminded me of Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar,
Hmm.
which is an incredible film if you haven't seen it.
I have, but I don't remember it very well.
You can this is also a movie that like you can really see its influence in a lot of things since, I guess. I guess one other thing about like the Marilyn Monroe of it all is like I think before I had started watching, I mean I've only seen her in this and All About Eve, and I guess I hadn't right like with the kind of like classic cultural image of like her in the dress from 70 Rich, right? That's the movie with the white dress, I think.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not
I
sure.
feel like it's not. I don't know if she's remembered enough as a like a comedic performer
Right,
that
she's
it's
just a
like
sex symbol. She is a symbol, but like
right, but it's like it's not. I feel like I didn't get the sense before watching these movies that like oh no, it's like this is a comic character. Like she's being goofy and funny the whole time.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. She is like the dumb blonde and doing jokes based on being the dumb blonde.
Right, I guess, but it's like I thought it was just like, oh, it's the 50s. Like they had simpler ideas of womanhood back then, which is also true. but
I mean,
like it's more of it's a bit more of a like satirical
mhm.
thing that I realized it was before actually watching
Which,
the
I mean, I
movies.
think, maybe connects, to, one other thing that, as we saw proto Marilyn Monroe, now we see Marilyn Monroe, like, fully formed, and
Mhm.
a lot of the shots that you see of her, you're just like, "Oh, she's just posed and framed exactly like she is in the Andy Warhol paintings," right?
Mm.
Like, she just tilts her head a certain way, and then she just becomes the image of Marilyn Monroe instead of, like, a person.
But it's like this movie is acknowledging that like no, she is doing that
Yeah.
on purpose. Like she
Once
is
again, Andy
posing.
Warhol did
Yeah.
not do anything interesting. I shouldn't say that so definitively, but every time I've seen Andy Warhol do something, I'm like, "Okay, come on," you know? And, like and, the way that you're talking about this, it's like, yeah, oh, he's talking about the nature of celebrity and artificialness and whatever, like, when he, and all this stuff when he just makes his infinitely replicated Marilyn Monroe images, but she was already doing that, you know? That was just what she was.
Right, it's a bit of a, like, scary movie being a parody of Scream, and, like, Scream is already a, like, postmodern meta comedy about slasher
That
movies.
is so wild that you compared Andy Warhol to Scary Movie.
We got there.
Because I don't disagree, but
That
that's
is
awesome.
when you put it that way, that's very funny. Yeah, I think this movie's super funny. It's got a lot of great, just, like, screwball comedy shit going on that we haven't even talked about.
Yeah.
Um It's all most of it's set on, like, an ocean liner, which I feel like is a great, like, setting for a screwball comedy.
Yeah. We had, not All About Eve, what's the other one? The one with,
The Lady Eve.
the Lady Eve.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
Mar
similar to The Lady Eve, these are both Hays Code movies that are both, like, obscenely horny.
This is a ridiculously horny movie, and it is
Yes.
the main 2 characters are really just their main deal is being horny.
Yes. Well, I feel like Marilyn Monroe's character, Lorelai,
Yeah.
her main thing is she really wants to marry someone who's wealthy.
Yeah, she's a gold digger, where,
Yes.
Jane Russell's character sings a song all about how she wants to have sex with every Olympic swimmer that she
Right.
can.
And they're all like, "Oh, sorry, we have to go to bed at, like, 6 p.m. because we're Olympians and we need our beauty sleep." And she's so mad about that.
There's also a part in this movie where, like, like, just speaking of just the horniness that is dripping through this movie, there's, like, a part where, like, Marilyn Monroe is trying to climb out of a port window and gets, like, stuck halfway out of the window, and I am like, this is just half disguised fetish content right here. This is like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
but I don't think the movie, it doesn't feel leering, I think, because,
Yeah,
um
I didn't find it because it also is, like, at least, directed by a male director, but it is the lead characters are both women, and it is very much from their perspective. It's maybe a little leering, but not in a way that I found to be particularly egregious.
I think that, the characters are owning their sexuality, and they're doing it
Yeah.
very intentionally,
There's
at
also a
least,
lot
like, in
of
the
Jane
narrative.
Russell leering at shirtless men in this movie, so, something for everybody.
She's such an effective chaperone in this film.
Sure. Oh, right. She has one line at some point where she says, I want you to find happiness. Stop having fun. Like, you're not allowed to do fun things. You need to be happy. You need to get married and settle down. But even that is sort of like, I think it's making fun of the sort of, what I think of as like a very stereotypical, like 50s kind of like conformity thing of like, you know, don't sleep around, get married to someone wealthy. And this movie's just like, don't. No, who gives a shit?
Yeah, yeah.
You do you. Be happy.
And, yeah, the people telling them not to are the, like, lame stick in the muds who are ruining everything.
Yeah. 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 I quite enjoyed this film.
Well, on the cruise ship, they're heading to Europe.
Mm.
They're
Mm.
going on a holiday.
That they are. Perhaps a Roman holiday?
Roman holiday. Introducing Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, actually gets the introducing credit, which is fun to see.
Mhm.
Pretty good introduction too. Very charming, that Audrey Hepburn, not gonna lie. Hot take, Audrey Hepburn, pretty charming.
Yeah. Coming right out of the gate with some intense manic pixie dream girl kinda
Oh, yeah,
kinda
for
energy on
sure.
this one.
But also the sort of, like, royalty in disguise thing, which I feel like is very that it feels almost like, is there a Shakespeare play with that? There must be.
There must be, yeah, like swapping places with a royal who feels confined or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, right. Someone of authority and leadership, disguising themselves as someone else, much like Odysseus in the Odyssey. See, I made it work.
Oh, is that why you wanted
No,
the
I
she's
that just
looking that
popped
you
into
were
my head
trying to
just now. I'm trying to make really sweaty connections to that. That'll be further down the line.
sweaty
Um,
connections. They were trying to make sweaty connections in the last movie.
oh, that they were, and this movie too. To be fair,
Well, this movie is a lot of I mean, so this is structured like a kind of, a screwball romantic comedy kind of situation.
hmm
It's got a very familiar setup of somebody there's like one character who has a sort of I don't know what's the term, like sort of like surreptitious reason for getting close to the other character, and
right.
then they realize they realize that they love each other, and it's like I know I
Well,
was
there's
spying
yeah.
on you to write a news story about you, but I love you.
Right. The setup is that Audrey Hepburn is a princess from a, fictional, unspecified European monarchy who's fed up with the snooty princess life. She wants to, live life as a normal person just for one day. And so escapes the palace and winds up in the home of a journalist, Gregor Peck, as Joe Bradley, because he thinks she's drunk and she's actually just tired. Um, and then but then it's like,
She's been given a lot of sleep medications, and she's trying to fight against them and
yeah.
see the
Um,
Benadryl hat man, I guess.
and so then he finds out that she is secretly the princess, but doesn't tell her this because he wants to write a news story about it. Because then, like, the princess is missing, and so there's sort of multi-level sort of people hiding things from each other. Great setup for any romantic comedy. It's maybe a little bit like this movie gets right up to the edge of being like there's too much lying happening. Where I'm like, these people are doing a lot of lying to each other.
I feel like that sort of is offset a little bit by, I think there's a point where they are kind of suspecting enough what is happening with the other person that they almost are keeping up a lie that they know the other person doesn't believe,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, yeah,
they are believing a lie because they want to,
right.
when they kind of know that it's not true.
It is very much like many romantic comedies. Like it is a situation that if you actually like think about it in real world terms, you're like, that is kind of fucked up. But because the actors and the writing is so goddamn charming, you're just like, I don't know, more of this, please.
Yeah. Old Hollywood romantic comedies and charmingness.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
just
just got
you
all
can't
the,
defeat it.
riding around on a Vespa and,
Mhm, mhm.
sitting in cafes. This movie is just like stupid. This movie is stupidly romantic, both in this sort of like very direct sense, but also in this sort of just like romanticism of like European life. Much like American in Paris, I think too. Of just like, I want to sit in a cafe
Mhm,
and drink a
mhm.
cappuccino. I want to
We
ride a Vespa through Rome.
we still need to make our pilgrimage to La Ciotat station, and
Yes.
we
Yeah.
should have our 1 week, 1 year, European vacation.
European tour. I mean, sure. Yeah. Great. Sign me up.
You and me, we're gonna ride around on a Vespa. I'm manifesting this. Toward the end of the movie, I think that a lot of other films would find some way for for their love to lift them out of their positions, and they would find some way to be together,
Hmm.
but this movie kind of drops down into a sense of realism, and Like, they have their kind of whirlwind day where they experience everything that they would like to. They really get to see each other and experience each other, and then they go back to their lives because she is a princess and he is a
Yeah.
struggling, like, newsman.
She is the face of an entire nation.
And so the movie ends in this kind of, unlike a lot of other similar films,
Mhm.
it ends in this really kind of bittersweet
Very
way where
bittersweet. Yeah.
where they kind of wordlessly, they're at like a press conference, and Gregory Peck and the photographer that he was working with, that they were all posing as friends the entire time. They kind of wordlessly acknowledge, yes, we were taking pictures of you and writing about you, but we're not releasing it because we care about you, and that moment was for you and me and us, and like the moment can just be what we had, but goodbye, you're a
Yeah.
princess. And yeah, it hits.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Gregor Peck just like right, it's like the press conference like dissipates, all the other reporters leave and he's just like standing alone in this giant like palace hall, and he like really kind of like just like slowly walks out of the room, and it's like, oh god, it's like so it's just like his echoing footsteps, no music. Um it really sells that like bittersweet feeling. I was thinking like during that ending, like during that press conference, right? They're like making such intense eye contact, but they're not actually acknowledging the like romantic day they had a day previously. And
These are some weirdly oblivious news people who
I
can't
can't
pick up
help but
on the
think about
vibes.
all the other reporters in this news conference being like, "Whoa, the princess and this one guy just have insane chemistry."
And the end of this, by the way, like, I feel like so much of that, like, oh, what if, it has
Mhm.
that kind of end of La La Land kind of vibe, like
Sure, yeah, yeah,
it
very
was never
similar.
meant to be.
I don't think it's never meant to be, but it was just like this thing that we shared is finite, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that is also an incredibly romantic idea. That it's
Yeah.
like no, 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 like this is a finite thing. That's all it was ever going to be. But the fact that it's so kind of contained, and it's just like it will not continue, and yet it was like for what it was exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One little thing about this movie, there was a moment where I did the Leonardo pointing meme, um, because there is uh, kind of the last moment that they have together is at this kind of like dance or like party on a dock, I guess, like, or
Mhm.
like a docked boat. Um, and there's some like string lights, and there's like they're trying to get away from people who are trying to get her back to, they hired some people to track her down and get her back to the palace.
Yeah, the sort of
and
the royal men in black gets sent out after her.
and there's like a sort of fight scene in a way where they're like trying to get away from these guys, and she like takes a guitar and smashes it on one of their heads. And I was like, oh, because they remade that scene exactly in the movie of Paprika. uh
Oh shit! Really?
yes, yeah, so Paprika has like a bunch of like very specific movie references. It's got The Greatest Show on Earth in it, and
Hmm.
it's got that specific scene of like, the character taking the picture of her while she smashes the acoustic guitar over someone's head. And yeah, I've watched Paprika so many times, and I've been watching Paprika for like so long. I was like, oh my god, it's from Paprika. But that's kind of just a Boss Baby situation.
I mean, no, I mean, I was one thing that I like about doing this show is like seeing all these sort of like little moments in older movies where like, oh shit, I've seen that before.
Yeah, and it is like the
Yeah,
smallest moment. It's like
yeah.
7 seconds or something like that.
I
But yeah,
mean, also a good reminder to rewatch Paprika, which is just always
which
something worth doing.
always a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, should we go east then?
I guess another bittersweet movie
Mm.
is Tokyo Story.
Yeah, this is Ozu's big daddy right here.
Sure. Well, I guess I don't know. I feel like Ozu has some other big movies, but this is kind of considered his magnum opus, perhaps.
Yeah. This is Ozu's modus operandi. Yes.
Sure, sure. And I don't know. I think between this and what was the last one we watched?
Late spring, right?
I don't know. I don't know if Ozu's. I don't know if I'm vibing with Ozu. Which no one is more upset by that than me. But I don't. I found this movie very
Oh, there
difficult.
might be a commenter on YouTube who's more upset about it than you.
I think this is a very good movie that I just didn't. I did not connect with. I had
Yeah.
the opposite reaction as the 5,000 Pages of Dr. T. Come at me, YouTube commenters. I'm more of a 5,000 Pages of Dr. T guy than an Ozu guy, I guess.
Tell them
Um,
about your opinion on the Marx Brothers too.
Marx Brothers, probably funny on stage, not as funny in movies a lot of the time.
So yeah, I mean, I think I like this better than Late Spring.
Yeah,
I think it captivated. I wouldn't say it captivated me, but it captivated me more than Late Spring did.
I have
You know,
similar difficulties with both, I think.
I mean, I think that is just Ozu difficulties.
But
That's
that's the
the
thing.
thing,
I
right?
also I really liked the first one that we watched from like
Oh,
the late
the
40s.
silent movie.
Yeah. I was born but.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the things that are associated with Ozu that are sort of considered difficult, like the pacing, the the lack of things happening, um, those aren't the things that bother me. Like I'm all for that. I
Hmm.
think I think there's just it's almost just like the worldview presented in this and Late Spring. I just find so I don't connect with on like a pretty fundamental level, I think.
Interesting. Well, I mean, the worldview of this movie. This movie is a soft remake of a film that we've covered already, which is Make Way for Tomorrow. Uh, this
Hmm.
and so
I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's a soft remake, but
no,
there is
it
definitely
is.
some.
No,
It
it
is like
is a
like
soft.
intentionally a soft remake.
Yes.
Oh dang.
I don't think that Ozu himself had seen Make Way for Tomorrow, but I think the co-screenwriter had and so they were riffing off of that specifically. Because he hadn't seen it, I think they have some similar plot elements and they have some similar theming, but this is a very Japanese story, and didn't make its way to the States for a long time because it was considered to be a very Japanese story. But yeah, the worldview of this movie is that the movie is exploring relationships between generations, which I think is kind of Ozu's big thing.
Hmm.
I think the one angle on that this movie is the most focused on, although there are others, is um adult children uh feeling like their parents are a burden and not respecting them that much
Hmm.
and not appreciating them while they're still around. And that is
Hmm.
the stuff that shares with Make Way for Tomorrow, as well as certain things about like, oh, we're going on a visit and then we get split up and then like is somebody gonna die, that sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate the slowness, and I had an easier time with it in this movie than I did with Late Spring.
Mm.
But I do think that sometimes I'm feeling like with Ozu stuff, I appreciate the slowness conceptually more than I do experientially.
Sure.
And you
Yeah.
can say that that's because my mind is ruined by TikTok and whatever, which it probably is. But also, it is a real choice to make a movie this slow and this boring,
Sure.
you know?
And I mean, I had an interesting sort of like experience watching this movie because like I was like, all right, Ozu, here we go, getting ready for some slow cinema.
Here we go, Zoo.
Exactly. Kind of 2/3 of the way into the movie, I was like, I don't know about this one. I am not feeling this. And then, the big thing, the one big thing that happens in the movie happens, which is the spoilers. The mom of the family dies, and I during that moment, I was like, or during that kind of like section of the movie, I found it very emotional, like very emotionally affecting, and I was like, this is now contextualizing everything that has come before so well. Where
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
all of
Yeah.
these scenes that feel like they're just very slice of life, like nothing is really happening, now feel like they're incredibly important and have all been leading to this one thing.
Life is given meaning by its end, right? I
Yes,
think
and I
that's
was
what's
like,
going
I
on with
get it. Like
this.
this movie is brilliant, and then
Yeah.
and then it lost me again after that, and I was
Oh,
like,
really?
actually no, and now I'm like suddenly like really put off by it again, and I don't
Put
know,
off. Tell me
kind of
more.
put
Tell me
off. I
more.
think the um I hesitate to compare this movie too much to Kiru, right? I mean, it is about generational differences. It is about death and sort of like looking
Yeah.
back on someone's life.
It's
And
got some of the you're talking about comparing the end of Akiru where it's like
sure, and
we
also
just
right,
go yeah.
Akira has this sort of like kind of moment of sort of like we have it all figured out. Like we know how to live life now, and then immediately is undercut with like actually there nothing has changed.
Right.
And I found that to be very emotional and like very affecting in Akiru. And I was like, yeah, this is the right way to end this movie. Whereas I think there is kind of a similar thing in this where like there is right, they come together to like acknowledge that their mother has died, and there's this like very emotional section of the movie during the funeral. And then it kind of ends on more of this note of like actually now one of the daughters like just wants to like get all of her mom's stuff now that she's dead. And like it left kind of a sour taste on my mouth at the end of it. And I mean, I get annoyed sometimes when people take dialogue in a movie to be like that is the movie talking directly to the audience. Like, depiction does not equal endorsement.
Yeah.
But there's a line towards the end of this movie where someone says, "Isn't life disappointing?" And someone says, "Yes, it is." And I couldn't help but kind of see that as a little bit of a thematic, mission statement for this movie. Like it is very much about like expectation versus reality, and like the grand life that we imagine for ourselves when we're young versus looking back at life and being like, "Oh yeah, I didn't do any of that stuff." Oh well. And I'm like, fuck you, movie. I don't want to. Like, I don't want to. What are you showing me this for? I feel like the kid in Princess Bride when he's like, no one kills Humperdinck. He lives, and he's like, Jesus, Grandpa, what are you reading me this thing for? Which I
uh
get. Like, I'm not. Whatever. Come at me in the comments. That's how I was left feeling from this movie.
See, I think I have a bit of a different perspective on all of that because to me, and this is similar to Make Way for Tomorrow, I don't think that the kids really do ever learn. I don't think that sure they're not like so callous that they don't care that their mom died, but I think they are relatively callous through the whole movie. And I
Hmm.
think it only becomes more and more clear through the movie that like they are more concerned with their own, oh, I've got to go to work. Let's put this off. Oh, I'm being like inconvenienced by having to go book a train to to go visit my sick mom. They don't say this, but there's almost like an implication when they're talking about bringing your mourning clothes of like hopefully she's dying because I don't want to take this train all the way over here like as like
Right. Yeah. Which
it
I
like
will say is like it does feel so real though, of this thing of like acknowledging almost that it's like when something like really dramatic and big is happening, there's all these other just like factors going on, right? The thing where it's like, come visit us. And it's like, oh, the train is so long. They're like, I'm never gonna do that.
yeah. The when the grandparents are saying like, "We're visiting you. It was a long train journey. Don't bother visiting us." They're just saying like, "This is the last time we'll ever see you because we're going to die soon." And there's this portent over the whole
Hmm.
movie of that kind of impending death.
But it's like you feel like the parents are like really they know what they're saying. They're like, we are trying to tell you without saying it out loud that like this is the last time we're gonna see you.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, "Okay, bye, cool. Yeah, sure, maybe we'll visit." And it is like
Go hop on a tour bus or whatever.
right,
I
it
got to
feels
go to
like
work.
they are
Yeah.
not hearing it, in the subtext, which
Yeah.
is like is so incredibly frustrating to watch, but is also like I think a great example of like we can tell through the way that the dialogue is being performed and the way that it is being presented to us as an audience what is being said, and the characters are not picking up on that subtext.
Yeah, and I think that like where I feel like this movie is going, I don't think that there is a moment where the kids learn. I think that, through the course of the film, you get more and more clear of a picture how kind of callous and selfish and self-concerned the kids are. And what starts shining more and more out of that is uh the daughter-in-law, the widow of one of the kids.
Mhm.
um where, like, through the whole visit of the parents to Tokyo, she's kind of the only one who is just like, yeah, like, let's spend some time together. Like, I
Mhm.
really care about you, you know? Like, it's not a problem for you to stay with me. Like, eh, she they go like, why are you're not even blood related to us? Like, but she finds like a real meaning in their connection because she chose to, right?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
she
The other kids are kind
specifically
of taking it for granted a bit.
yeah, she specifically chose to keep this relationship with her in-laws of a husband who died, what, 8 years ago or something,
Mhm.
right? And so the moment after the mother dies, I don't really see it as like the kids didn't learn the lesson. I kind of see it as like the kids were never going to learn a lesson.
Oh,
Um
sure.
I
Yeah.
see it as like, now we take a moment to let Noriko, the daughter-in-law, let her connect even more with them, because now her and the grandpa, they share an experience of having lost a spouse, right? And so, like, the end of the movie is this kind of like even deeper strengthening of the meaningfulness of their connection. And she ends up staying longer than everyone else, and she connects with him in a much deeper and realer way. And yes, she still has to, go back to work, and that's like almost just feels like a kind of everyday tragedy instead of
Mhm.
callousness, right? And the kind of I'm saying the theme out loud moment for me was something that I think was said twice, which might have been some kind of, I think they said it was like some Buddhist thing or whatever. It was just like, you can't serve your parents after they're dead, right? And so, like, seize the moments that you have with your parents and do what you can to, like, be there for them, because eventually you won't be able to. Yeah, I think there's another kind of conspicuous line that is said, which is the last one in the movie, which really just feels like twisting the knife, which is like, the grandpa is just like sitting in his now empty home after his wife has died and all of his kids and his daughter-in-law have left, and he's just sitting there with his new life by himself. Then his neighbor walks up and it's just like, man, you're gonna be really lonely, huh? Anyway, bye. And then that's the end of the
Right.
movie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I fully recognize that this is an intentionally feel bad movie. And like there were parts that I found like incredibly emotionally affecting, and I was
Yeah.
like, was so taken up in it. But I do think I often struggle with movies where part of the point in quotes is like, is that nothing changed,
You like
like that's just
Seinfeld. No hugging, no
it's true.
learning.
This is true. This is true. And right, that's kind of why I was starting to compare it to Akira in my head a little bit. Like that is partially it. Like part of what that movie is about is that nothing changed.
Mhm.
And yet I still find the ending to Akira to be like kind of optimistic somehow. Whereas I did not find the end of this movie to be very optimistic.
No, no.
And I just felt really kind of bummed afterwards. And so right, it's less that I think this is a bad movie, and it's more that just this movie made me feel very bad.
Ozu's masterpiece.
But like I don't want to poo poo it. Like I do think it is like a really it's a great piece of filmmaking. But I think like thematically it does a lot of things that I have problems with in stories. And maybe that's a me problem. Who knows? Clearly
That's a
Ozu was pretty well appreciated. So
we were experiencing this with the last Ozu movie, where I'm
maybe
just
I'm too
like,
American. I thought
yeah,
about that too. Like I
is
have
this a
very
me
Western
problem, or
sensibilities. Yeah.
and that's the thing, right? It's like, Ozu, kind of known for his austerity in terms of
Mhm.
storytelling and camera movement and all of that kind of stuff. Like, he considered this to be his most, or like a very melodramatic movie for him, a
Mm.
relatively melodramatic movie, which, this movie is way more austere than like any American movie has ever been, and
Right.
are my American sensibilities maybe a little more attuned to Make Way for Tomorrow? Like,
Right.
for
Yeah.
I like this movie, but I love Make Way for
Right.
Tomorrow.
And
And
similarly, even like Ikiru, another Japanese movie, still is like Kurosawa has I think a much more American sensibility as a storyteller.
yeah.
I think he's much more inspired by American films and, ended up inspiring a lot more American films afterwards too. But like I do think his like sensibilities are more in line with what like Hollywood movies were doing at the time. So, I'm sure there's some of that in there too. So like I don't want to dismiss this movie, but I also I yeah, I had trouble with it.
But yeah, I was watching this movie and just thinking so much of Ozu's compositions are just so locked to the shape of the frame.
Mm.
I'm not sure if Ozu actually ever made a widescreen movie, but it's kind of hard to imagine him making one because his style just seems
Mm.
so like
Mhm.
in to that aspect ratio, because it's just so many squares, so like just an Ozu shot feels like it has to be 137.
Yeah, I think so. And it is like right, we haven't really talked about like the cinematography of it, which is like so distinctive and so like so tied to like Ozu's like identity as a filmmaker, I guess.
Mhm.
And it is like right, every single frame of this feels like so composed, like perfectly, where it is like
Yeah.
every frame of painting, truly. Like it is so very deliberate, very composed. Like there's I do think he gets like great depth out of stuff, right? Where you're watching scenes from like down a hallway. And right, it feels very observational. It does really feel like it so often it feels like the audience is in like the next room and it's just there's a conversation happening a room over that we're listening to.
Hmm.
Right, which is like so different from theater, I think too, of like right, the theater of like, all right, this thing is unfolding in front of us that we're watching. Whereas like Ozu is kind of placing you into the movie in such a kind of distinct, unique way.
What else happened to Japan this year?
Ooh, well, another big a marquee film for its director, Kenji Mizoguchi's Ugetsu,
Hmm.
a very different film from Tokyo Story.
Yeah.
Much spookier and quite a bit like right, I think Tokyo Story is so much about sort of like contemporary Japanese life and like it is
Hmm.
so kind of detailed in that of like the everyday troubles and just things that are going on, whereas this movie is like fully a sort of like a fable, like a
Yeah.
fantasy fable.
Yeah, and set in olden times, set in
Right,
Japanese
yeah.
olden times, with like warlords and shoguns and that sort of thing. Are
Hmm.
those the same thing? Spooky. It's a movie that is like nominally a ghost story, but that's like a part of it, and
Right, right,
a
it's
lot of it
partially a
is,
ghost story, but there's that is like a section of it, yeah.
yeah. This movie like goes to a lot of different places, but it all kind of feels tied together by the, you call it like a fable, and it's like two of the main characters, they seem just completely powered by this like unnatural obsession with money and status. And
Mm.
I think the movie is kind of like, this is what happens when you're too obsessed with these
Right, I think
things.
the movie's kind of making the argument that it's not unnatural, that it is just this like dark
Mm.
human urge.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think the way that they act in this movie is almost as if like something
Right, it's
unnatural
like
were like
they're
activating that dark
yeah,
human
they're
urge,
like
because like,
compelled by greed, yeah.
yes, yeah. Yeah, like putting themselves and their family like in danger and causing like measurable horrors on the women in their lives. They're basically, this is a movie where two husbands are just become obsessed by dumb things, and then their wives suffer miserable fates just trying to like
Yeah.
pick up the scraps
Well, I
afterward.
mean, again, this is what I think the second Mizuguchi movie we've watched for the
Yeah.
show. And they are both very much about like women suffering, which is
Yeah.
as a theme, as a storyteller, I feel like that is a hell of a choice.
I think it's coming from, a good place, right? It's
Yeah. I definitely I found this movie a lot less dour than the story of the last chrysanthemum, which was the last one we
mhm.
watched. I think that movie was like good, but it was by the end of it, you're just like, damn, dude, like can like anything remotely happy happen in this whole movie? Whereas this, I think, is it feels a bit more well balanced, and I think it feels more fable like, which I think helps that about
Yeah.
it. And yeah, I do feel like it is the kind of moment to moment stuff. It does feel pretty grounded. I think even the like the supernatural elements when they do come up do feel part of what makes them really effective is that it's like they the movie isn't the movie is I guess sort of like is ominous leading up to that, but when it gets like explicitly supernatural, it feels like, whoa, this is scary now because this has not been a thing up until now.
I never really felt like it was scary, but it's definitely got an eerie feeling
I
through the
thought it
whole
was
film.
really effectively, yeah, maybe not scary, but like really creepy in the way that I think ghost stories tend to be. The thing where is like, what's his name? Was it one of the two husbands ends up at this like palace castle with this kind of wealthy woman who's like the benefactor is like buying his pottery. Come stay at my fancy castle. And then all the spooky stuff happens, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit more. But then it's like the reveal that like that has been abandoned and like destroyed for decades is such a great ghost story twist.
The
Right,
castle hasn't been she's been
right.
dead for years.
Yeah, that bathroom hasn't been open for 30 years, which is such a classical ghost story thing, but is I also feel like it is deployed really effectively here because it isn't it's like it's drawing you into the sort of like spooky ghost story stuff slowly so that when it does sort of like actually get creepy you're like whoa, now we're deep into this thing and I didn't expect it to go here. I think I had heard that this was a ghost story movie and yet I had almost kind of forgotten about that by the time we get to that stuff in the movie.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I was emphasizing how small of a part of the movie it is because I think, a cool thing that this movie does is that it's not like about ghosts. It's just that like there are some ghosts in it. And
Right, yeah.
like it's just one of a number of things that happen and it's a movie that very like nonchalantly dips into the supernatural and then back out
Hmm.
again. Which I think
Yeah.
is fun, it's like um you know, things are just kind of happening as normal, and then they stumble into a creepy mansion, and then stumble back out again.
Yeah, that whole section feels very gothic to me, not just in that it has like spooky ghost stuff, but like right the idea of like this like mysterious wealthy benefactor who's like come live in my fancy house is like
Yeah,
that's like the most classic gothic setup there is.
and
So,
and she's also kind of like a bit of a succubus kind of
mhm.
figure, I guess. Like Genjuro is
Mm, that's what
uh
it is.
he's the one that's like so driven by money, right? Like he makes pots, like clay pots. He goes into the big city to sell them. And one at the beginning of the movie, he comes back and like he just did really, really well selling his pots. Like he made so much money. They're able to buy all the stuff that they couldn't before. And then he gets bitten by this bug of just like, I made so much money. I can make so much more money. Like I need to
Right.
just single-mindedly.
If I made this much money with this many pots, if I have 10 times as many pots, I will make 10 times the amount of money.
And if he enters a tunnel at 25 miles an hour holding 25 pots, but then drops 20 of them, how many pots does he have? And what time does he leave the tunnel?
Yeah.
um, I think he's the one that first kind of you see him just almost like acting irrationally from just like how obsessed he is
Mm.
with this like material objects, right? He's obsessed with material objects and then gets lifted out of this material realm. Ooh. Uh
Mm, mm.
but
Right, it is somewhat sort of like it is treating greed almost as this like supernatural like predatory force almost that like
Yes.
overtakes people.
Yeah, very much so. The other character, he is obsessed with like status. He wants
Hmm.
to be like a samurai. And he gets told you can't be a you can't join us if you don't have your own armor and sword and you're too poor to afford that stuff. So buzz off, guy. And then he becomes just single-mindedly obsessed with like I'm helping this guy out selling pots so that I can get money so that I can get armor and a sword and then I can be
Hmm.
seen, I can be respected.
Meanwhile, right, anytime he interacts with a samurai at this point early in the movie, they are like so dismissive of him. They're like, "Get out of here, gross dude. We hate you." And he's like, "I just want to be like them."
And all of this, like the backdrop of all of this is they're in this, war torn town. There's like, battles happening and, horrors going on where they have to like
Hmm.
evacuate. So that, like when bandits come and not bandits, but like people from the opposing team or whatever come and just raid their houses after and take all their valuables after they've taken over the town. But then the guy's got to go back because his pottery's in the
Yeah,
kiln.
he's more worried about his kiln than his own life, his family's life, any of his
Yeah,
other like material possessions.
yeah. His wife is
It's
telling him like, "You have a kid, and they're just clay pots. Leave it.
Yeah,
Like you're
and they're
going
also
into a war
killing
zone."
people in town. Yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't listen. And
Yeah. They flee in the night because of right, one of the enemy factions is just like raiding their town. And it's him and this other married couple who are out on the road, and they get split up. I forget exactly why. This was the first ones I watched, so I don't remember it quite as well.
I mean, it's they sort of get split up because they're like somebody's got to watch over the kid.
Yeah, right. It's like they're all on the run at first, and then right, they kind of slowly splinter apart, and like people are left behind at certain places, and right, the two couples split up, but then also both of them each kind of leave their wives behind at some point because they're like, you got to stay here. I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to figure all this out. I'm going to figure out a way to get us money and get
I'm
us
gonna make it
status.
big
And
and then come back and then forget to ever come
right,
back.
right. One of them is, right. Genjuro goes off and he's like, I'm going to go sell more pots because like that's all I know how to do. And then Tobey is like, I'm gonna figure out how to be a samurai, and he like right, he finds like at first finds the samurai armor for sale, and is like, I can afford this. I'm gonna buy this instead of buying anything for my family, and I'm gonna go off and be a samurai. Like, peace, bye, see you later.
Yeah, to get to like the repercussions of that, like he just grabs some money and takes off and like he just splits very quickly to go and buy the samurai armor and he's just completely forgets about his wife. She's like chasing after him and she loses him and she's like trying to find him all around town and then while she's off in like a kind of dangerous area, I guess, a bunch of people come up and then just rape her. And they do it inside of a Buddhist temple, which is a wild thing that happens in this movie. They like
Yeah,
take her into a Buddhist temple and rape her in front of a Buddha statue. And then they throw some coins on the ground when they're done. It's like so insulting and horrifying.
yeah. It is. It is like, I think it's partially because it is a Japanese movie and it's not Hollywood that it is like it is able to kind of go to such a dark place, I think. Like, I kind
For
of can't
sure.
imagine a Hollywood movie having that scene during this time period. Like,
Definitely not.
it's even weird. It's like it's weird to see a movie this old be that dark, I guess.
They don't show they don't
Sure,
show
yeah, but
that,
it's like
but
it still is
yeah, it's
very
very
clear what's
clear.
happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
in a way that I don't know if a Hays Code movie would allow.
Oh, yeah, no shot. No way.
Right, Tobey is like he's able to find success as a samurai, but only kind of through like happenstance.
Yeah.
Like a guy dies in front of him and then he takes credit for killing him and is like, good job, now you're a leader.
Yeah.
Which is like,
We
so I feel like that is, I don't know, like a real thematic kind of exclamation point almost of like,
Mm-hmm.
this guy found the success he was looking for by lying about it, basically.
Yeah. And then at the end of his story, like he encounters his wife again as he has been, gotten his dream. And then she is like a prostitute. He and his cabal of other samurai, they like, encounter her in like a like geisha hotel type place. And then she's just like, yeah, man, you like left me behind. Like all this bad stuff happened to me. You got what you want. Ain't that great for you?
Mm, yeah.
And that's basically the end of that part of the story. Is just like, you just ruined my life and you got what you wanted. Isn't that lovely?
Right, and then Genjuro has his whole ghost encounter
Mhm.
where he's seduced by a ghost woman. Also, the music in that, like there's music in the ghost section, like when things are where it's like once he starts to realize that she is a ghost, because he like talks to someone in the village, and he's like, "Hey, if you saw that woman, like, do not talk to her. Like, stay away. Like, this bad news." And he's like, "What? What? She's rich. She's giving me money for my pots. This is great." He's like, "No, no, 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 no. Bad news." And it isn't until later that he realizes he's like, "Oh no, that was that ominous portent was true." And the music just has this really like discordant, like
Mm.
creepy sound to it that I was very impressed by. And that's right. His low point is then realizing that he's been seduced by a ghost, and that this nice new lifestyle living with a wealthy woman is not all it turned out to be. And like everyone kind of then like meets back up and returns to their village, having encountered all of these horrible escapades. I mean, it just kind of ends on they're like, "Hey, I guess we've learned something from this. I guess we've
Yeah,
learned not to like build our entire lives around this like pursuit of material things."
I think that there's one line that feels like the mission statement of this movie,
Mm.
like Tokyo Story has, where it says success always has a price in suffering, which is
Mm.
definitely the
Yeah.
viewpoint of this movie.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Clearly, Mizuguchi is like very interested in just like unpacking like what causes suffering and like what suffering does to people. I like this more than Tokyo Story, I think, just because I do think it is also a feel bad movie, but it's sort of like it's
It
it's
feels
much more
more
of a
immediate.
it's much more of a like grab you by the shoulders and shake you kind of feel bad movie,
Yeah.
you know? And also like it does have this like very it has it's very clear in like what its mission statements are, I think. And I like the sort of like mythic fable like storytelling of it.
Yeah. I guess I touched on this earlier, but I like how the ghostliness is just the weird ghost zone is really just integrated into the rest of the world. It's not explicitly paranormal, but like all of that stuff had a bit of like an eyes wide shut sort of feel to it, of
Hmm.
like this man who is like kind of ignoring his wife and kind of goes on this kind of strange journey, like like this like strange little odyssey, like with some seductresses and whatever, and it just is a thing that like happens in his life, and then there's like these weird repercussions that like emanate
Hmm.
out from this kind of weird, this strange night that
Yeah.
he had.
Much like the Odyssey. A guy
Yeah.
abandons his wife and has a bunch of weird supernatural encounters.
Yeah, and sometimes you think that something's real and it turns out not to be, and that's Wax House, baby.
Hey, nice transition. Are we going to explain what that means? Well, our next film is The House of Wax, starring Vincent Price.
Also known as Wax House, baby.
Well, no, not this one. That's the 2005 remake.
Okay, very briefly, as briefly as possible, but also we will link to this in the podcast.
Sure, yeah.
I think both of our favorite podcasts maybe
Yes. I would say so.
is this podcast called Important If True, which does not necessarily have anything in particular that it's about. It's
I would
focused
say it
very
is
much on
emerging technology.
robots and wizards and genie wishes and buses that run on poop. It
Sure, it
is
is about all those things. Yeah.
a lot of what they do is kind of take some kind of weird news story and then imagine the horrible future that it could lead to.
Sure. I
But
actually that might be the best short summation of it.
there was one kind of
There was a big reveal
yes,
that was happened on that podcast, which is someone wrote in about how they had edited the Wikipedia page for the 2005 House of Wax movie and added it that it had an alternate title, which was Wax House Baby, which then,
and
despite being
included
entirely
a
fabricated,
fake citation
right, fake
to
citation.
a Canadian film magazine.
And as revealed on that podcast, that lasted for years and was then just picked up by other pieces of the internet pre LLM scraping, where it ended up on report on by other websites. Other articles would cite it as like that was the original title, and it all stemmed from just this very goofy Wikipedia edit.
Wikipedia vandalism, yes.
Sure, sure.
And so Wax House Baby is kind of, I think it's just kind of what you say when you think things are one way and it turns out Wax House Baby,
Right. Well, it's
you
like
were
it's
wrong the whole time.
specifically this idea of like in an inception like way, a piece of misinformation that is planted and then spreads
Yeah.
unchecked, unintentionally.
Disinformation, I suppose, if I remember the difference between those right.
Ah, okay.
But
Yeah. But anyway, so that's why this episode is called Wax House Baby.
it's very, very funny, and I recommend listening to that segment. And I have I've shown that segment to so many people, and also that podcast is incredible and so funny and so good.
Very good. Yeah.
That is about the Paris Hilton 2005 House of Wax remake, which I saw recently and is pretty abysmal for the first half and pretty good in the second half. But
To my knowledge, that is like barely a remake of this movie.
yeah, no, it's there are people that are encased in wax.
Yeah.
That is
Which I mean,
that is
this is definitely, I think, the most famous film version of this story. So it was originally either a short story, a book, right?
yeah, this itself is a remake of an earlier film.
Right. There's a 1933 film, Mystery at the Wax Museum, I think. Yeah.
Hmm. Mystery of the
Mystery
Wax
of the
Museum,
Wax Museum, excuse me.
directed by Michael Curtiz.
Right. And I'm like, what? There's a Michael Curtiz directed Fay Ray version of this movie that I
Two
think is
strip
like this.
Technicolor too.
Right. And I'm like, I never knew that existed. I think that one, at least according to Wikipedia, is like less of like a horror movie and more of like kind of a mystery, like thriller. This 1950s version is certainly a horror movie, although it is also a bit of a mystery. Very notable for its 3D.
Hmm. This is the first 3D movie released by a major studio.
Right. So last episode we did the first feature length 3D narrative film. This we're doing the first like studio big release 3D movie. Also, I believe the first like Vincent Price as a like horror lead actor movie also.
I think so, yeah. Which and he's like knocking it out of the park. Like he's such
Oh
a
yeah, it
natural
is.
fit for
Yeah.
this.
Immediately like that like Vincent Price horror persona is there fully formed, I think. Also, much like Buona Devil, the last one we watched, this movie is like 70 minutes long and has an intermission, which I think is a technical limitation, right? Like because
Oh,
of
I
the
don't
way that
know.
like 3D prints worked or something.
Oh, I'm not sure.
88 minutes. It's not 70 minutes, but short and sweet, this movie.
Hmm.
The thing I like about it is like it gets in, it gets out. This movie is very silly and in the best possible way.
I think this movie's so fun.
I agree. I think the best word to describe this movie is macabre.
Yes. Oh, it's got the Vincent Price. It's got enough like it's spooky without being like overly gruesome. It's
Mm.
just a good macabre time. Ooh, we're having fun.
As I think you mentioned in your Letterboxd review, it gets away with being like very not gory, but just like right. There's lots of I guess like violence being done to wax figures in this movie, so it allows for like
Yeah.
dismemberment and melting faces
It's the
without a
Samurai Jack principle where they're beheading robots, but it's okay
right,
because
yeah.
in a kid's show.
Well, like the inciting incident of this movie is that this famous wax sculptor's wax museum burns down for the insurance money, and we see all the wax figures melting, and it is quite gruesome looking.
Yeah. Like opening the Ark of the Covenant
Yeah,
kind of
well, I
thing.
mean,
Yeah.
that's the Totes face melting is wax, so it's very appropriate. Likely inspired by this movie. So yeah, then it's like we do a kind of a time jump, and we find that there's been a series of murders happening, and then this famous wax sculptor reemerges, and he's opening a new wax museum, but this time he's making it spooky.
Yeah, he was like in the beginning he was like, I'm an artist. Like
Yeah,
everyone wants me to make like the thing with wax museums is that they dip into the macabre, but I'm not like that. I'm a true
yeah.
artist and
I have
I'm
taste.
working on my masterpiece, the Joan of Arc and my Marie Antoinette. And oh my god, like his voice, the way he says everything, the way that Vincent Price says everything is
Marie
so good.
Antoinette. He has such a perfect voice. And right there's like the section where he's like taking people on it like the public on a tour through his new wax museum, the spooky one, and it's just Vincent Price narrating all of these different like wax figure scenes of like a guillotine and like someone being hung and stuff, and he's chewing it up so well with his narration and his sort of like horror hostness. I guess before that was even really a thing,
Mhm.
right? He has a mute assistant named Igor. It's just, right. This movie is just so full of like really classical, like Halloweeny, macabre bullshit. I say bullshit in the most affectionate way possible.
This feels like along that kind of Halloweeny vibe, but also in terms of like, yeah, I don't think the movie is like graphic in a way that's like, I don't know, out actually horrifying, but it's graphic in a way that like suggests a lot of things with the wax figures.
Right. It
And this
suggests a lot
feels
of
like,
really upsetting things.
yeah, this feels like the earliest example I've seen of a horror movie that feels relatively modern. um
Hmm.
like the Universal monster movies, they are kind of doing their own thing. They're kind of like an older campier kind of thing, and there is camp in this movie for sure, but
Hmm.
like I think it is actually going for like something more similar to what you would see in like a 70s horror movie, like
Sure.
especially toward
Yeah.
the end
There's
where
there's certainly a luridness to it.
yeah, yeah. When we do the time skip, that we're introduced to some new characters, some kind of, I don't know, young people who
Yeah, young people, but also we haven't mentioned this is all Victorian era. This is very like sort of gas lamps and cobblestones and foggy streets.
it's set in 1902, I believe.
Yeah, 1902 in New York.
Yes. But yeah, like we're introduced to these new characters who are kind of not involved in this wax stuff, but then one of them goes on a date with the hot older guy. It turns out to be Vincent Price, disfigured Vincent Price with a wax covering on his face to look like a non-disfigured
As
Vincent
is
Price.
the big reveal at the end of the movie is that right we've seen this sort of disfigured shadowy figure chasing people earlier in the movie, and it's like, ooh, who's this scary looking guy chasing people? And then Vincent Price sort of re-emerges, looking a little older, and he's in a wheelchair now, and he's like, I'm reopening my wax museum. And then later we find out, one, he doesn't need the wheelchair, he can walk fine, and also his distinguished Vincent Price face is a wax covering of his disfigured face, which I love the reveal of that so much because it is just Vincent Price's face, and then we see off screen someone hitting him, and like a shattering sound, we see like a broken, almost like ceramic style face fall to the ground, and there's this melted face beneath, where it's like,
Yeah.
hang on, how did this work?
I
It's like
love it.
his face
It's
is
so
able to
stupid.
shatter, but it's also like, but I love how much it doesn't make sense. I love how hand
Yeah.
wavy it is.
But yeah, key to like everything, kind of all of his crimes that he does once once his masterpieces have all been ruined and he's been, corrupted in this Phantom of the Opera type way, uh,
Mm-hmm.
is that he can no longer sculpt. His hands are messed up. Were messed up in the fire, and he can't do his craft anymore. And so he starts, and as his mind has been destroyed by all of the horrors that have happened to him, he decides, like, what difference does it make if I start killing some people in order to get the wax figures that I want? And
Yeah.
so
Well,
he
it's like he has to sculpt from life. So
yeah.
what better starting point than a real human face?
So yeah, he starts, like, finding recently dead bodies or killing people himself, and then taking them into his basement and coating the bodies in wax so that he can find the perfect face for his Joan of Arc or his Marie Antoinette and have it in wax, and get it himself. And so he has this machine that just strips people down, straps them into this machine, and then starts covering them in 500-degree hot wax,
Yeah,
to
molten wax.
encase them. Yeah, to encase them as his figurines forever, which also feels like another barely disguised fetish thing too.
Maybe, yeah. I do
The getting
think
tied down and all that.
right. One thing about that, like the wax coating machine is right. They show it being used on like a mannequin, like the
Yeah,
full thing of like the wax gonna heat up and it's bubbling, and then like it sprays out of the nozzles onto the mannequin, and there's steam rises up, and it's like they show you all that so that then later in the movie, when a person is in that machine, like we know what it's going to do if it gets turned on, right?
yeah. There's a lot
And
of, like, James Bond machine, like,
oh
like, it's
sure,
getting closer and closer. She's about
yeah,
to get
yeah, yeah.
killed by this hot wax.
But right, having seen it happen to the mannequin, we're like, oh no, like I know exactly what's going to happen now, and I don't want to see that happen to a person because that would be very gruesome.
Yeah.
It does a really good job of like implying gruesomeness, right? And even like showing wax figures and being like, "There's a person under that one. Don't forget that one's a corpse that's covered in wax," and you're like, "Ooh, spooky."
Yeah. It's a very macabre concept. I think it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool. And yeah, and so, like, the new characters that we get introduced to become kind of fodder for murder, but also fodder for, one of them kind of goes into the wax museum and goes like, that Joan of Arc looks exactly like my friend who died recently. And it's really freaking me out. Like, what's going on here? She keeps, like, kind of poking at it.
The ears are pierced. How would he know to pierce the ears on the wax statue just based on a photo of my friend who died?
And that is one thing that the 2005 movie keeps, and it
Oh,
pays
interesting.
off on in a much more gruesome way, where it's like the people are still alive inside of the wax, and just, like, suffering, and the wax is, like, fused to their skin, and so when the person tries to, like, rescue their friend from out of the wax, they, like, take the wax off their skin and it, like, peels their skin off with it. It's
I mean, it
pretty
sounds like a
pretty
cool
cool.
effect. It does sound like definitely a much more of a 2005
Yes.
concept
Yeah,
than
yeah.
this movie would do. Also worth noting, Charles Bronson plays Igor.
Oh.
Very young Charles Bronson, who I initially I was like, this guy seems familiar. What have I seen this guy in? I'm like, oh, it's Charles Bronson when he's like 20. But he doesn't talk, so how would I know? He also has like weird makeup on part of the time. He it looks like he's kind of wearing Halloween makeup the whole time. The 3D, I think, is much like Wanna Devil, is like surprisingly tasteful.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Except
like
for one part, but I think it's
the paddle ball.
I think so. Yeah, there's a guy that's like a carnival barker guy who is bringing people in on the wax museum's first day, and he's using his paddle ball to just grab everybody's attention and just does the paddle ball right at the camera. And they, like, hang a lampshade on it right afterward because, like, Vincent Price goes like, I know it's really tacky, but we'll only do it for a little while,
Right, but that's the thing. It's so self-aware that it is a carnival barker who's doing the really obvious 3D stuff. Who's like, "Hey, check it out! It's coming right at you! Woo!" And then immediately Vincent Price is like, "That's a little tasteless." Yeah,
I I think it's funny though. I like it.
I think this whole movie is very funny and very intentionally comedic too. Like,
Yes. Yeah,
there's
there's
a
a lot of
lot
good
of
comedy
really
in this.
great like character writing and like character moments in this. Like even Right, there's a moment where, who's, like, the main, gal, Sue, is up, up in her apartment and screams because Vincent Price in his, disfigured guise has broken in, and we cut downstairs to, like, the other people in the apartment complex, and there's a man and woman, and they're like, "Oh, like, we gotta go help," and then the man immediately, like, grabs the woman next to him, like, pushes her ahead of him as they go up the stairs. Which is like, it isn't, and it never comes back. It's not remarked upon. It's just two characters who only appear in that one scene. But it's like that didn't they didn't have to put that in there. It's just a weird character moment that kind of gives that scene a bit of lightness and a bit of like goofiness that it wouldn't
Mhm.
otherwise have. And the movie's full of that kind of stuff, of just like little comedic little jabs and lots of kind of like sly winking, sort of like, spooky, right? We got you.
I think there's another, like, kind of just fun it's not even like a joke moment, but it's like this implied thing where they're all of the horrors that people are looking at in the first day of the wax museum, and somebody faints, and, like, he's just got smelling salts, like, at the ready,
Right,
like,
smelling salts.
he's got him in his pocket, he's like, I'm ready for this moment," It's,
Right, yeah.
and like Sue, not Sue, the Sue's roommate who becomes Joan of Arc. She, like, everything that she says are these like really
Yeah.
weird, like, petty jabs
An
at
an
people.
absurd cartoon character in this movie. Like, right, everything she says is a joke, basically. And that's, I think I didn't quite expect the movie to be quite as, like, overtly comedic as it is. Like,
Hmm.
it's really, it feels very haunted housey, in just that it's like, it's gonna scare you and then kind of laugh with you about scaring you almost.
It's a good mix.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
like, I think that, I wouldn't have a problem with how macabre this would be if it wasn't funny, but I think the mix of being macabre and like it's having fun, it is that
Mhm.
like perfect
I
Halloween mix.
I don't know, I do feel like there's something about macabreness that is a little tongue in cheek, a little bit like,
Mm-hmm.
at least the way I think of it. And yeah, I think like the tone of this movie is like so good. And it's not quite like horror comedy, but it is like, there's a lot of lightness and a lot of comedy to it without undercutting the horror of it.
I should also say that this is a 3D movie that was directed by someone who could not see in 3D. Uh,
Right?
he-
Insane that that is true.
they got a guy with an with an eye patch for his whole life to direct a 3D movie, which is just an incredible, fun little detail there.
Yeah, yeah. Also, another thing I thought of during this movie is, right, you mentioned Phantom of the Opera, which does feel like a sort of reference point. I was really reminded of Sam Raimi's movie Dark Man, which
Hmm.
I had known was very heavily inspired by the pulp character The Shadow, and there's very clear reference there. But like the entire concept of like a guy being disfigured in a fire and then having like a different face that he puts on, also just wearing like a dark like Inverness coat and a big floppy hat, which is also what The Shadow wears. But like the costume that sort of like, creepy night prowler Vincent Price, his whole like a look is very similar to Darkman, and so I have to
Hmm.
wonder. It would not surprise me in the least if Sam Raimi is a fan of this movie.
If Sam Raimi is a fan of funny, scary movies,
Yeah, so that's fun.
I think like one kind of, I mean, I don't think it's like awful in this movie, but like I think something, it happened enough times that I felt like I needed to call attention to it, is that like this movie is, it's not egregious, or it's not, whatever. What I'm trying to say is that this movie, like many others, creates like a link between like disability as like a metaphor for like a corrupted soul or
Sure,
evil or something like
right.
that.
It
Like,
depicts it as monstrous, or it uses
yeah,
it as a shortcut. Yeah.
like all of the bad guys, like one, his body is burned and he's in a wheelchair.
Hmm.
Another is deaf mute,
Hmm.
and another is like consumed by alcoholism. And like these are the things that like, it's it's a link that people would make as a sort of thematic resonance that people would end up finding tasteless later.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's interesting that like this movie almost seems like fixated on it in a way. Like if you're bad, it reflects in your body in some way.
Right. Which I think, right, the intent always is like, right, giving a character some kind of like physical, a way of like physically manifesting someone's inner, turmoil or like brokenness. But I think the side effect of that is why this is a bad thing to do in storytelling, is that it's like then you're equating any sort of physical malady with monstrousness, and it's like, hang on now, this is not good. And yeah, so like you like as much as I don't think this movie is trying to like imply that like if you have burn scars you are a monster. It is definitely, it's not a great shorthand. Yeah, this is still very much a 1950s movie.
Yeah. One last thing that I want to mention is that this movie has a Chekhov's Joan of Arc, which is kind of incredible. It's like you see a wax Joan of Arc who is like on the pyre about to be burned, and then they burn the building down and they see
Mm,
the Joan of
mhm.
Arc burning. I'm like, we
Yeah.
knew it was gonna happen. It's perfect.
Right, so this movie, big 3D push, right? Sort of like it's the hot new thing, 3D. We love
Yes.
3D. Check it out.
Yes.
One of the other big gimmicks of 1953, but arguably the only one that really stuck, is Cinemascope.
Left side, whoa. Right side, whoa.
Exactly.
Widescreen.
Right, we're talking about the Robe, the first Cinemascope release, and part of what this movie was marketed on was the lack of glasses required to watch it, which I think is very funny.
I mean, those glasses are not fun, I have to say.
It's true. They're very annoying to this day. And then it was also, I mean, I think Cinemascope or just anamorphic widescreen in general is much closer to something like Cinerama, which this is kind of a direct comparator of. But unlike Cinerama, it only requires one camera and one projector, making it a lot more easy to deal with and cost efficient.
Not just one camera and one projector, but also you don't need like a special camera or a special
Right.
projector.
All you
Like
need
you
is
just
all you need is a special lens, much like the
yeah.
one on my webcam right now.
Whoa. Yeah, I think the reason why anamorphic widescreen was able to stick around was because it was a new form that could be just retrofitted onto old equipment.
Yeah.
And like that makes it so much more practical to install in theaters. I mean, I guess maybe you'd want to make a new screen or something like that if you
It
really
did
wanted to
require new
emphasize it.
screens, and I think when it was first released, there were only so many screens that existed or that were being built, because this was like a brand new format. Which again is like, I'm gonna keep bringing this up and comparing this movie to The Odyssey, because I think there's a lot of parallels. But I think it's interesting. There's like all the discourse now about how like The Odyssey is only being shown on what, like 40 screens worldwide in full height IMAX, and it's the first movie to be shot 100% in full IMAX.
Hmm.
And so I think it's interesting that the Robe was there was also this sort of like, yeah, but yeah, sure, it's shot in CinemaScope, but like, where are you gonna see it in CinemaScope? There's only so many screens that exist. I mean, I'm assuming there were even less CinemaScope screens in 1953.
Yes, but CinemaScope also, it didn't necessarily require a new screen in the same way that Cinerama would,
Right.
because you could just mask off the screen that you have already. You could just get a lens that emphasizes the width of your screen
Yeah, I
instead of
don't know
the
if
height.
that was really done though. I don't really think it was sort of like, we're gonna project a smaller image onto a normal sort of 133 square screen. As far as I know, it was always like, no, even if maybe the auditorium is wide enough that they can put in a wider screen.
It's certainly, yeah, you're emphasizing, I think the beginning of scope, it's like of CinemaScope, it is emphasizing the grandness and the wideness, and that's the whole point of scope.
Hmm.
And to this day, there are honestly, well, more like starting recently, there have been a lot of people, a lot of movie theaters that build screens in a narrower aspect ratio. And so the like the actual physical screen is a narrow
Hmm.
aspect ratio, and so scope is supposed to be the thing that's big and extra and really,
Yeah.
and it ends up being smaller, which is wrong. I don't like that.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Right. Because I think I don't know about most, but a lot of movie screens are 185 to 1, which is it's not the same, but it's like roughly a similar shape to a modern TV screen, which is still wide, still wider than 99% of movies were in 1953. But it is funny, right, that like proper widescreen movies like this, and this is even wider than most widescreen movies are now, because this is what we're getting into really technical bullshit, but hey, that's why we watch this movie. Oh yeah, also this movie is about like a bunch of Roman stuff. Who cares? Do we want to talk about what actually happens in this movie?
We should and we can, but we can stick to the technical stuff for now.
Okay.
Don't get technical with me.
Oh, we're getting real technical.
C3PO's mad.
Sorry, C3PO. To sort of put it in the greater terms of like what this show is about. I do think it's interesting that like we've been talking about Cinerama and 3D and these like kind of ways that movies are starting to kind of like try to come up with these like ways to make movies grander and bigger and more of an
Yeah.
event. And this is the one that stuck. Anamorphic widescreen. Cinemascope is a brand, so it is like a specific variety. It was like, and so like Cinemascope doesn't really, what was Cinemascope then doesn't exist anymore, doesn't get used anymore. But the concept of using an anamorphic lens, which is a lens that squeezes an image horizontally
I was about to say you should explain that. Yeah.
and then de-squeezes it when you project it, so you get a really wide image on the same size film when it's being filmed, is still how it, I wouldn't even say necessarily most movies, but it is like there's a probably a very good chance that whatever movie first pops into your head that has been made since like 1959 was shot with anamorphic lenses. Not all. There's plenty that weren't, and there's
It's like
plenty that
50
still aren't.
50. It's roughly 50-50.
I would maybe argue it's maybe more than that, but yeah, but it's like, all the Star Wars movies, all the Indiana Jones movies, like Alien, Blade Runner, like famous stuff. It's still a very common way to make a movie.
So like to kind of like talk about the shapes that we're dealing with, like Academy ratio is 1.37 wide to 1 tall. That's like the ratio to 1. And so it's a much squarer aspect ratio. It's relatively square, more or less. And that one was all of the movies up to now effectively were that aspect ratio. It was a square one like an old TV.
Right, is the shape of the image that you get on a piece of 35 millimeter film. Right, when it runs to the camera, it is square, and then you project that image, and it's still square, and that's
More
how
or
movies
less.
look.
Yeah. And when we start entering this widescreen era, there's a lot of different widescreen processes,
Mm-hmm.
but pretty quickly, but we're about to find out over the next few
Mm-hmm.
episodes, but
Right.
pretty quickly, the Academy ratio, the square aspect ratio, more or less goes away. And that becomes relegated to television. Television is the
Mm-hmm.
square one now, and movies are wide, and they're all just different flavors of wide.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of like proprietary wide ones, but what the cinema industry has settled on, at least I can't say exactly when it happened, but like probably like certainly since the 70s, the cinema industry settled on two different flavors of widescreen: flat and scope. Flat being the one that's a bit closer to the way that your TV or phone is, a 16 by, it's not 16 by 9, but it's pretty close like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying. And then scope, which is the extra wide one. And typically, when we're talking everything is widescreen at now, comedies are flat, dramas are scope.
Mm.
Epic things are scope, and adventure movies are scope,
Right.
and documentaries are flat. And it's not universal, but it's like, the different shapes kind of imply a different story in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways, which I think is sort of an interesting thing about these aspect ratios. I remember being a little surprised that Jurassic Park is flat.
Right. That's to emphasize
Because
the height.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
When as a projectionist, when you receive a movie, like one of the first thing, and you're kind of getting it ready to go on screen, like one of the first things that you look at is it flat or is it scope?
Mm-hmm.
Because that changes certain aspects of your workflow and everything. And so I end up kind of having this like, I there's a lot of movies that I can just tell you whether it's flat or scope if I've played them because I
Mhm.
know like I have to interact with the aspect ratio. So you end up seeing certain connections with what type of movie it is
Mhm.
and what aspect ratio it is.
Yeah.
So that's my long explanation of all that.
I think movies that are scope also are associated with movies that are more expensive because anamorphic lenses are typically very expensive. They're harder to
Oh,
work with. It's harder to make a movie in scope than it is if you're using an actual anamorphic lens. It's just required. It's more work. Like they're harder to focus. They have way more quirks and weird shit you have to account
and
for.
this movie has some focus that does not does
Right,
not
and
focus for
I think that's
parts of it.
what's one of the things that's really interesting about it is this is the first one, and it's like you can see you can see the things that they're having to overcome in it that are like still things that if a movie shot anamorphic, like it's just that's gonna be there that you have to account for it. One of the main ones that has been pretty much entirely corrected for now, like any contemporary anamorphic lens, unless it's like a really cheap one. When the really early ones, like the ones used in this movie, the how much they're stretching the image. So typically, the like classical anamorphic lens, what most movies use is a two times anamorphic lens. So it's stretching it out by two times, right? It's twice as wide as it was to begin with. But when you focus it, that changes. The actual like squeeze of it is changing slightly. So when you focus on something that's really close to the lens, so like for a close up, it's the is it less or is it more? I forget which, but it's more because then it's like if something's in the center of the screen, it'll get stretched out horizontally a little bit. So like actors, if they're really close to the lens and they're in focus, they look wider. Like their face is stretched out horizontally. And apparently that became a problem with all of these new, Cinemascope widescreen movies. Is like actors would be like, "No, I don't want you to use that lens for my close up because I'm going to look fat."
Wow, that's interesting.
Because it was a real problem. That's just and it's just technical. Like there's no way to really account for it back then. Since then, like Panavision, which is still the kind of like gold standard of anamorphic lenses, I believe they invented a new mechanical way to focus so that that didn't happen. That like corrected
Whoa.
for that. So now it's like the squeeze doesn't change depending on the focus anymore.
Yeah, I mean, most scope movies do not have this effect, but I guess I went ahead and watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea
Hmm.
for the next episode recently, and for this movie, and honestly, for scope movies that I've seen that have been notably low budget, like some kind of Hong Kong scope movies,
Mm.
it'll have this kind of
Shaw
fisheye
scope,
thing.
perhaps.
Shaw scope, exactly. It'll have this like fisheye thing where like things or people that are near the far edges of the screen get kind of like
Right, they get squished.
squeezed.
Yeah.
They get squished and they get kind of like warped so that they're like not straight. They're kind of like curved toward the
Right.
center. Like there's this big like fisheye kind of thing going on. And I
We
didn't really
call
know
that
about like
barrel distortion in the biz.
ah.
Because then there's
By the
also
way,
pincushion
this is
distortion, which is the
I
opposite.
think I think right now this is the most that we've ever been. I'm a film projectionist and I'm a filmmaker. Yeah, I was just kind of noticing that in like cheaper scope movies, and then also some of these early ones, and I didn't really know that it was Panavision
But
specifically that
it's
kind
but
of
that's
fixed
I
that.
mean, even the things like where things are squished at the edges, there's still lots of movies that have that too. Like No Sudden Move, the Soderbergh movie. I forget which specific lenses it uses. I think it's Kawa lenses, but it's like those have
Cow
really
lenses.
pronounced squishy edges where it's like if you pan side to side, you can really see like a lot of warping and a lot of distortion.
The pans on those movies is really comes out.
A lot of these early movies I think are like really trying to correct for that stuff. I mean, they're not able to, but I think right we're probably going to see that stuff getting smoothed out. And then I think more recently, I think people have kind of embraced that a bit more. Where like people want all of those weird quirks and all those weird distortions and stuff. Like the
Hipsters.
exactly the most recent Batman movie, The Batman. They used like specifically broken anamorphic lenses to shoot that movie
Oh
because they had
wow.
all these weird quirks that the director just liked and was like, I like how these look. Like they have like a really, distinct quality to them. even though they're technically broken, and it's like, right, it's like abandoning technical perfection and embracing, painterliness, which for the most part, I vibe with. I like when movies, as long as it's a deliberate choice, are sort of like embracing a little bit of a more painterly kind of like visual style.
It's interesting though because like stuff like that distortion at the edge of the screen, it's there's a way that it can like pull you out of the movie, right? It's not
Mm.
like being used as like a momentary effect. It is like you take a moment and you go, "Oh, there's something wrong here," you know?
Yeah, it is also
And
like,
it makes you think about the
oh,
process instead of like what's happening inside, which
it
might, which is a tool that you could use
sure,
on purpose,
yeah.
but yeah.
I think it can. Yeah, I think another thing about anamorphic lenses that gets brought up, I think, was sort of part of the marketing for the Robe. Also, is that it does kind of give it a little bit of a slightly 3D quality, where like stuff will kind of pop out from the background a bit. Like it gives it this sort of
Yeah.
weird shape. And the distortion does kind of give it this like slightly, yeah, like fisheye or like 3D.
I wouldn't say 3D actually. I would say like yeah, so I
I mean, it was
watched
described that way in 1953, which I think is sort of a marketing thing.
right. Well, like
Um,
I watched this movie on a cinema screen. And I watched it
Humble
with
brag.
the masking pulled all the way out.
Nice.
And what I can tell you is that what that fisheye effect had was almost a faux curved screen effect
Hmm.
or like faux cinerama effect where it's like I feel like if you want to be using that like that barrel distortion on purpose, what you're doing is like you like tricking your eye into making the flat screen feel like it's wrapping around you a little
Hmm.
bit.
Yeah.
And so it's not like things are popping out at you, it's more that things are like surrounding you.
Hmm.
And the barrel distortion is trying to like evoke your natural field of view
Yeah.
uh while you're watching a flat
And it's like
image.
Wes Anderson loves some anamorphic lenses. He loves weird distortion. Like, there's lots of that in his movies. And so it's definitely a thing that I think has been embraced as even more of a like an aesthetic choice, I guess. This movie, I guess we should talk about the actual movie a little bit. I do think uses the widescreen of it all very well. It is very much
Yeah.
like every part of this movie feels like it is optimized for being as wide and panoramic and big as possible.
I think a swords and sandals epic makes sense for being the first widescreen feature because
Right.
it gives
Yeah.
you like a lot of crowds and a lot of like but it gives you like a lot of crowds and a lot of like
Hmm.
big like buildings to like really
Yeah. A lot of
sell that
architecture.
sense of scope,
Right.
that sense of cinemascope with it.
Hence the name. I also think it is right to compare to the Odyssey one more time. I think it's really interesting how like in 1953 everyone was like, no, no, screen boring, bad. We don't like it. Widescreen, we like it as wide as possible. And now since then, especially this year, it's been this like push of like, no, 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 tall screen. We need screen to be square again, just bigger. And it's like, right, but it's like there's so much of the marketing around the Odyssey is hyping the IMAX of it all, as well it should. But I think it's interesting and a little funny to me how it is like, and because this is going back, IMAX has been a big selling point for over a decade at this point. Of like, look at the big square screen. It's so tall. It's so square. Where it's like right, like movie theaters are reverting back to embracing the square
Well,
shaped screen.
I mean, part of
It's
this
just a
is
bigger one,
streaming paranoia, like this was
right? But even that, right? Like
about TV paranoia.
But like, right, like the TV paranoia was like, hey, TVs are square, right? Now it is like TVs are widescreen. They're like the equivalent of flat, not scope. Although you can buy like big curved super widescreen TVs too. That now, right, movies are their way of counteracting that is make it square again. Which is
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I find that very interesting and very kind of ironic somehow.
just like let's do whatever they're not doing to
Exactly,
carve something
exactly.
else, something
Yeah.
out for us. I mean, so I have something to say about this, which is like I agree with both what the Robe is doing and what the Odyssey is doing because this was like a kind of perspective that I came to a couple years ago when I was thinking about different aspect ratios is square, like Academy ratio, and wide scope ratio are both shapes that I think you need to compose your image very specifically for. If it's a scope thing, like if you're really only focusing on one little bit of it, then you're wasting all of the space next to you.
Or you're using it as just empty space, which can be very effective.
Definitely, but like when I say like if you're only using a little part of your frame intentionally, let's say,
Mhm.
then there's a bunch of unintentional stuff that is just making itself very known because it's taking up most of the screen,
Right.
right?
You have to account for a much bigger field of view. Yeah.
With like a squarer, taller aspect ratio, you also have to compose very specifically because it can be hard to fit everything that you want, horizontally speaking, into that square frame. And so you start wanting to use like depth a bit more, and you want to start
Mm.
like creating some to not have too much space floating on the top and bottom, and to like have an interesting frame, you need to work a little harder. Both of those are so extreme, like
Mhm.
one's extreme tall, one's extreme wide, that they really evoke a feeling because of
Mhm.
the extremity of the shape. I think that 16 by 9 or flat, like the kind of narrower aspect, the narrower widescreen that you would see on a typical TV or computer
Mhm.
monitor or phone, it's not just that we've been overexposed to it, which we have, right? Everything is 16 by 9 now. Again, your phone,
It's the standard.
yeah, like your
If you're
phone,
watching
your
a moving
TV,
image, it's probably
like
gonna be that. Yeah.
menu boards at restaurants, you know?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it
Because 'Cause they're
is,
just using TVs.
yeah, everything is 16 by 9, and it's very pedestrian now. It doesn't feel
Mhm.
special because it's everywhere. But I don't think that that's the only thing. It is a problem that that one aspect ratio is everywhere, but I think that 16 by 9 is a very efficient aspect ratio because
Sure.
it is the
Probably why
exact
it
right
became the
shape.
standard.
Yeah, it's the right shape to comfortably have shot reverse shot in.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like you have just enough space to have like a little bit of the back of someone's head, but mainly focusing on one person on one side of the screen, and then do the same thing in reverse on the other side. And that is so much of what movies are, is shot in reverse shot of
Mhm.
two people talking. And 16 by 9 is perfectly framed for making the same image with that every time, you know? Like if you're shooting two people talking to each other in 16 by 9, it almost always looks the exact same because it's just like this is obviously where you put the camera and this is obviously how you frame it. Um and so it I don't think that flat like lends itself to interesting compositions in the ways that the other ones do. I think it is you can just put the camera down like you put your phone up, and it makes it
Mhm.
makes a composition that gets the job done. Which is why like all documentaries are 16 by 9 because you have a home camera, more or less all documentaries.
Mm.
You have like a video camera that is HD 16 by 9, and you can film the stuff you need to film, and it gets on the camera, but it doesn't necessarily look too crafted.
Right,
There's
it's
my
I
spiel. I'm done with my
yeah.
spiel now.
I don't necess I do agree. I don't necessarily think it doesn't lend itself to interesting conversation composition, but I think it's easier to get away with boring composition,
Hmm.
and so people often do. Yeah, I mean, lot of great aspect ratio talk in this episode. I'm all here for it.
Anyway, the robe.
Anyway, the robe, right, is a big sword and sandals, kind of historical-ish, like Bible epic kind of. It's not really a Bible epic, but it's like,
I
it's
saw someone
about
on Letterbox call it Bible fan fiction, which
right, pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's our first Richard Burton film we're covering on the show. That's fun. Richard Burton plays Marcellus Gallio, who's a Roman officer who is the Roman officer who gives the order to crucify Jesus. Who we never Jesus is like always conveniently framed out, like we never actually see his face. And then is like tormented by just the sort of near supernatural guilt of that he then embraces the newfound following of Christianity and becomes an enemy of his former Roman masters. Big sweeping movie. Didn't do much for me personally, but also, I'm a filthy heathen, so maybe that's part of it. I do think like this movie looks incredible. Like they really put the work in on the costumes, the cinematography, the staging of it is like really quite impressive.
Yeah, for the first movie that is made in this aspect ratio, I was kind of surprised that they did it so
Yeah.
well.
When it's also, I think it's interesting. It's the first one. There's no close-ups in this movie, really. There's like some kind of medium-ish close-ups, but it is for the most part, it's like entirely framed wide to show things off. But I think also just because like they had one lens and that's what they could use, so they were just like, nope, here we go. Here's the shot. It's the room. I think it's interesting. This movie is such kind of a cultural, well, not a cultural, but is a very technical landmark and not at all a cultural landmark. Like there's lots of these like 50s sword and sandals epics that exist. This one never gets talked about unless it's the first Cinemascope movie. Like that is far and away the most notable thing about
Which
it.
is exactly the ratio of how much we're talking about this movie to how much we're
Exactly.
talking
Right.
about
Of
the
course.
scope. Yeah.
But to talk about what actually happens in the movie, I haven't seen a lot of Richard Burton movies. I do think he's quite good in this, especially compared to some of the other actors in it. Not to rag on people too much, but Jay Robinson, who plays Caligula, who's kind of the main villain of this movie, is like so absurdly over the top. It made me laugh, but I do think it is a bad performance. It is like, even in scenes where he isn't speaking, he's just like listening, he's doing way too much.
He is
But I also kind of love it.
yeah. I mean, yeah, he's doing something, he's being bigger than everyone, and like I think that what they're trying to get across is that he is flamboyantly homosexual and therefore evil. But I think that
Yeah, I mean, maybe my mind doesn't immediately go there, but I took it much more of just like this actor is milking this role.
I think it's a little of both.
Maybe, yeah,
I thought that it was kind of interesting. I mean, like, this is a Christian movie, and so I did kind of feel like they were sort of tying in like it's like gay coding, it's like,
sure.
1950s, 1960s gay coding of villains. It's definitely a big thing. The Caligula, at least from the reputation of the movie called Caligula, I guess is kind of known as a degenerate, I suppose.
The guy liked to party.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that I don't think that the movie is like massively making a statement along those lines. I think, like the kind of woke critique that we have of House of Wax, I think it's just kind of tying these things together in a way to
Sure,
just
yeah.
sort of make it thematically resonate.
I mean, it's such a just like it's so theatrical. It's so kind of just like, and it's got this very like English theater kind of voice. I don't know. I don't think it is a good performance, but it's one that I enjoyed watching.
This movie it does have some like really kind of high drama flourishes. I think made it stand out a little bit less to me, although it still definitely does. There's the Greek slave who is kind of the one of their first kind of people who's sort of converted over. And he's going around town and like asking people, like he heard that like there's an assassination plot or like a plot from Pontius Pilate to capture Jesus, not assassination, but he's trying to go and warn him. And so he's going around town going like, have you heard of Jesus? People are saying he's the Messiah. Have you heard of this guy Jesus? Just like people have told me on the street, have you heard of Jesus? And
He was the first one.
and there's a point where he goes up to this guy and he goes, Jesus has been captured, and that someone who was close to him betrayed him. Oh, like it was horrible, and he shouldn't have done it. And then the guy goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "My name is Judas."
Thunderclap. Lightning sound. I laughed so hard at that. I loved it. Right. It's like the most obvious. That's the thing is, it's played totally sincerely in the movie, and it's absurd. It's so silly. And I think that kind of sums up this movie. It's like it's so melodramatic, and it's so just like it's so of its time. It feels like a real kind of like classical 1950s like biblical epic movie. I just think it's so blunt and it's so kind of like not. I think there is a lot of I guess sort of elegance in the visuals and like the staging of it. Like the sets incredible. Like the matte paintings incredible.
Yeah.
Some amazing matte paintings in this movie. But the storytelling is incredibly blunt. But right, it is often blunt in an entertaining way in that, especially in that scene.
It's blunt. I mean, to defend it a little bit, I think it's blunt in an entertaining, melodramatic, campy way, and then I think the other ways that it's blunt make it feel like arch, I guess, but not like necessarily
Mm,
as like a criticism, like because this movie is kind of just trying to be like hone in on very specific ideas, specific Jesus themes. It's like
sure.
it's
Yeah.
like these people were bad, but I'm going to forgive him. Through my forgiveness, I taught people how to forgive and how to be good. And it's like all of this like really big stuff. And it's like trying to just like have all of these like kind of large themes
Mhm.
reflect everywhere, which makes it kind of blunt, but I think it also kind of makes it like focus on what it's doing in a way that I think works. Like, I'm also a heathen, and
2 self-identified heathens.
I was watching this movie, and like there were points where they were talking about like the inspiration that people receive from Jesus, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, wow."
I think for most of this movie's runtime, I think it presents what I think are the genuinely positive aspects about Christianity and about, like, what the teachings are, which are, like, helping people that are in need.
That's the thing. It's like I think that like this movie doesn't really feel like it has any of the like any of the yucky aspects of contemporary Christianity on it.
I didn't think so until the very end, and then I was like, "Ah, I don't like this ending."
Like the
But
very, very end.
the very, very end, yeah,
Oh, the very,
where
very end is so funny.
it is very funny, but I did not like it. Yeah. The like happily walking into death, I just found to be like not grim, but just sort of like the right. It's supposed to be this like heroic moment of a sacrifice. Of like there two people who were dying for their ideals, right?
Yes.
And the way that it is kind of framed and shown in the movie is like just so silly that I
It,
just
it,
yeah
yeah, it's someone
I
going
couldn't get
like,
on board
I
with it.
don't have to kill myself, but I will, and it will be a heroic moment. and and we'll show it in this, in this like the visual way that they show it, I think is the really funny part, which is
Yeah.
that they're just kind of like walking to their execution, and then suddenly like the background fades away and like heavenly clouds fade in. and
Yeah,
they're
and
just
I'm like,
and they're just walking up to heaven.
happy ending, question mark? Yeah.
It takes some of the gruesomeness out of it, certainly, but
Sure, I don't know, it's the
I
one
don't know
part of
if
the
you
movie
should be taking
that
that out.
felt kind of propagandistic to me, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Because I think the rest of the movie doesn't. I think the rest of the movie is sort of engaging with, like, Christian ideals in a really kind of earnest, genuine way that I did appreciate.
Yeah. I think it's like another interesting thing that the movie does, like being an explicitly Christian movie, right? It seems to take a bit of pains to not specifically like depict any supernatural stuff. Like it's
Mhm,
stuff that like you could interpret as supernatural. I think something that was really interesting that the movie did was there's a character who like couldn't walk. She was like angry at the world and like depressed about everything because of this thing. And then, you hear like Jesus healed her, right? Then you meet her later and she still can't walk. And the main character, this is before he kind of is converted to the
mhm,
teachings of Christ. He's like, what's up with that? Like, you said that Jesus healed her, but she still can't walk. But then you see that like it's like he healed her metaphorically and spiritually, because like
mm.
he like took her like awful outlook about the world and made her happy, and like that was what healed her. And I think that's a really
Yeah,
interesting like kind
yeah,
of like secular interpretation of like Jesus,
yeah.
and like a way that kind of makes what he did feel like really profound in a real way, and it doesn't need to resort to miracles or like
Mhm.
supernatural stuff. I was kind of surprised that an explicitly Christian movie that has Jesus in it would not would like specifically shy away from depicting miracles as like a necessarily real
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah. One more technical thing just to sneak in there that I do think is very interesting is right, this being the first movie shot in CinemaScope. It was simultaneously shot normally, normally for 1953, so flat, in 133. And that was, I guess, the one that was shown on TV
Hmm.
most of the time. And apparently it's like has some like alternate takes and stuff in it too, like because they were shot simultaneously, like some of the footage is actually like it's different, the performances are different. And that's also just like an interesting quirk of this movie that there is this kind of like alternate version of it.
Kind of reminds me of like the movies that in the silent era that would shoot like the versions for different countries at the same time,
Right. Or
right?
yeah, even like right movies that are shot for sound or shot silent, like kind of
Yeah.
using different takes and things like that. I did not realize before watching this movie how much the movie Hail Caesar within the movie Hail Caesar. So there's the Coen Brothers movie Hail Caesar exclamation point, and part of that movie is about a 1950s film production of a sword and sandals like Roman biblical epic called Hail Caesar that is like a direct parody of this movie. Like very I thought it was more of a generic thing, and after seeing this, I'm like, no, no, it's this specifically. So I'm excited to rewatch that movie, as we will probably do for our recap episode for the
I feel like you're
50s.
gonna
Because
watch
that
Ed Wood too.
honestly, that seems like a great double feature for the 1950s recap episode because it's like
Yeah.
it ties in very directly to a lot of movies that we're watching. So yeah, that's the Robe. Widescreen is the thing now. We'll see where that goes in the coming years. What was your favorite of these flicks that we watched?
You know, I know you're gonna pick it, and so I'm just gonna go with House of Wax. I thought House of Wax was a lot of fun. I thought
Yeah.
House of Wax was fun, fun, fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I would watch it many times, and probably not in red and cyan 3D again because my dominant left eye makes that movie way too red. But the first time that I saw House of Wax, I saw it in real D 3D, like in a movie theater.
Ooh.
And that was so much more pleasant.
I'm
um,
sure. Yeah. I would love to be able to
and
see it like that.
I think House of Wax is a lot of fun in 2D and 3D. But the one that you're about to say, I really enjoyed too.
I mean, I got a big shout out to Roman Holiday. I really liked Roman Holiday a lot. I'd never seen it before watching it for this show. Like that movie a whole bunch. But yeah, my favorite was, of course, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. A movie that I feel like no one has heard of or seen that genuinely deserves to be seen more and for people to check out because I like fully unironically think that movie is great. Shout out to Steven Soderbergh for asking the Night Hawk to show it.
Shout out Soderbergh. We'll get to your movies eventually.
Yeah, someday.
Well, all right. That will do it for this movie. This episode that where I think might be the only time so far, the first time that we have covered 8 feature-length
Oh.
films. But there was just too much to talk about.
I
We
know.
couldn't take any out. And
Yeah.
so we didn't.
And
And
also, and
that's
even there's a bunch that were like big movies from 1953 that we did not watch. We did not watch Wages of Fear. We did not watch From Here to Eternity. We didn't watch Peter Pan. We didn't watch War of the Worlds.
oh,
So much left out, and yet, that's just a problem we're going to keep having. Is there are too many movies?
we'll come back to him. We'll come back to him.
Yeah.
Eventually. In 15 years we'll be back on 1953.
We're gonna hit modern day, and then we're gonna reverse and start going back in time in reverse order.
I'm never sure if we should reverse or if we should start over again.
I think it's funnier to do it in reverse order because then we have like a
Ooh.
2025 episode like separated by a couple of months, and it's just
Yeah.
what other movies did we watch?
Well, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all for watching and listening and doing all the things. Appreciate every one of you. We're on the internet. I mean, mainly Instagram, I guess. And there'll be links and all that. And stick around for the next one. 1954. Can you believe?
There,
The
1954 has some doozies too. Boy, oh
1954 has
boy.
some god dang doozies
Yeah.
because we're going to be coming back with, among others, Godzilla, Seventh Samurai, Rear Window. Are you kidding me?
Mm, mm,
Uh,
mm,
so get
mm.
ready for that one. Buckle in and see you next year.
See you next year.
Your son will not be allowed to bring his baseball. Dr. Terwilliger does not believe in baseballs, golf balls, basketballs, or tennis balls, ping pong balls, snowballs, croquet balls, or hockey pucks. Dr. Terwilliger believes only in the piano.